So yeah, he said it's problematic, so we're just going to later record it.
Okay, sure.
So, is there anything else that needs to be sorted out before we start?
You'll want to get the projector working.
Oh, right, that.
But I can screen share the agenda.
Oh, right, we'll actually connect this to something.
Do you want to use your laptop?
Up to
I think Jason can put his on. Oh, we have a VGA too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Jason can just do it. And if Jason's on the call, then he can also screen share there as well.
I strongly suspect the system's not going to let me screen share, but I can try. Yeah, no, screen share is not going to work with my computer.
Okay, I'll screen share mine. Can people on the call please mute their mics if they're not speaking? Can everyone on the call see the agenda that I'm screen sharing?
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
I can see it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, we got one more person. I will check now. Amanda joined? And someone else, but I can't identify. We'll just can go through the roster.
Well, you just need the name. That is sure. I'm going to need that.
That's really good. Do you want to just sit at the front desk?
I figured I was going to.
I think it'd make it a lot better easier. Who's doing the science stack? If you contact me, guys, I can
Yeah.
Well, I'm just going to deal with this being mutated. People can still do this. Not going to do well.
Otherwise, I guess I can. Oh, yeah.
again, is there anyone who hasn't submitted a conflict of interest form? You don't count, Alex.
I suspect that I don't know.
Yeah, I know. You want what you get?
Yeah, they are.
No, that's just like the company.
Right, yeah. How about you? Yeah, sure.
I have Ben's phone number. I just have to find it again. I think I asked for it this morning.
Yeah.
Everyone's gonna know the same, but no one knows the requirements for taking minutes like. Yes, next time, I don't know. Thanks. So I'll wait to see.
Yes. Yeah. Except if I do that well. Not in this pile.
Yeah.
Hello, everyone. Can I have your attention? Thank you. Thank you for your patience with us as we sort out some technical difficulties. Now that we are recording and ready to go, I'm calling the meeting to order at 12:50 p.m. First order of business is election of the officers. So we're going to be electing the speaker first. Per recent changes, the president is the default speaker. And you would only choose to elect a speaker at this moment. So be resolved that council elects a speaker, or elect a blank as speaker. Is there anyone who would like to nominate himself for this position? Jason Small.
I would like to nominate myself as speaker.
I would like to nominate,
Go ahead.
this is Megan Town. I'd like to nominate Katie Arnold.
Katie Arnold is being nominated for speaker. I see a thumbs up in the back of the room indicating that she accepts.
I'd like to nominate Michael Boschman as speaker.
I will accept the nomination as for speaker.
I would like to nominate Erica.
Marika Shimoda has been nominated by, I'm sorry, what's your name? Rana.
Mariko, do you accept?
Oh, yeah.
Is there anyone else who would like to nominate or be nominated? Seeing none, we'll give each person nominated approximately 15 seconds to indicate why they would like the position.
I'd like to raise a point of order. It's just, I'd like to first ask them what time you give it than that.
Okay. Is there anyone else who would like to nominate or more time to speak?
Yeah.
Sorry, guys, you need to slow down. I can't take minutes this quickly. Like, you're speaking at like racing speed, and I have to take minutes at like horse racing speed. So, since that's not fun to put together.
All right. My apologies.
So, can you go back to what you said about time speaking limits? And then, Jason, you can thereafter raise your point of order.
I will allow every candidate 30 seconds to speak to their desire to become speaker. Is that what
Yes. Although I have a different point of order.
Yes, Jason.
I'll wait for a second.
Michael,
I'd like to ask that someone who is not running for speaker will see this portion of the meeting.
Matthew. Would you like to proceed?
our procedures don't have
You know what, never mind, I'll just
The
drop it.
president.
It's fine. Go ahead.
Someone else should scrutinize.
Yeah, we'll have to figure out how to deal with the people.
Ballot. Secret ballot.
And usually online you do a form where people put in their seat numbers and verify applicants.
Yeah, or-
Available.
Sometimes you just gotta make that person messages to a specific.
I would just say, to make it easier, have the message however you open scrutiny, or so if Matt's scrutiny, and then have the message Matt.
And then Matt can write on ballots what they need to say.
Yeah.
Matt, please kind of screen this. Thank you. When we go to voting, anyone who is online and wishes to vote should message Matt with their vote.
I don't know.
You sent a message back on Facebook.
I don't know what medium we want to use. We can use the VPN email.
Yeah. Email vped
Teams
at,
has a chat.
pardon?
Teams has a chat. Microsoft Teams.
No, that's a public chat.
Because these are anonymous votes.
There should be a message. If you can message Matt directly on Microsoft Teams, please do so. If you're calling in and not using Microsoft Teams, you may email Matt at vped@feds.ca.
Can you produce the list of candidates on the screen so that everyone knows who they can vote for? The candidates are Jason Small, Megan Town, Michael Boschman, I'm sorry, Jason Small, Kitty Arnold, Michael Boschman, and Marika Shimoda.
Procedure on voting that we use
Or you can do ranked ballots. But it's one seat, so it'll be instant runoff vote. And keep in mind, we will be allowing candidates to speak to why they want to be speaking.
All right. The candidates are those listed on the screen. We will take their speeches in the order in which they're presented on the screen. So we'll start with Jason for 30 seconds. A motion on the templates. Is it a ballot?
Everyone's ballot. Does anybody not have a ballot?
If you're on the phone, can you please mute yourself unless you have something to speak to? Thank you. Jason, you may proceed.
Yes, hello. As you probably know, I'm Jason Small. For the past 6 months, I was Deputy Speaker of Council. For the past 2 years, I was a community counselor.
June is now exiting.
So yeah, I think I've done quite well in those jobs. I think I have well experience in council procedures and other matters, and I think I've served well in properly running meetings in a partial manner, as well as guiding councillors, especially small and new councillors, through helping them achieve their goals. Thank you.
Thank you, Jason. Katie Arnold.
I'm just gonna get close to the microphone. Thank you, Emily. So my name is Katie Arnold. I have just finished off a term as NSHLAC president. Before that, I was NSHLAC VP Finance. I have also served on the Ontario level of the Engineering Society, the Engineering Society's Council of Ontario, and I was recording secretary of the General Assembly of the Canadian Federation of the Engineering Students. I am pretty much fluent in multiple levels of policy and procedure in council meetings, and I think that I'm a very good candidate to be speaker for this council meeting because I am not executive nor a representative member on this council, so I will not be sacrificing my position to maintain neutrality through this assembly.
Thank you, Katie. Erica Shimoda.
Hello, my name is Miracle. I am the
Can you
current
slow down?
engineer.
Sorry, guys, I think to be able to catch up. I apologize.
Katie was great and she did a lot of things. I think that's a pretty good summary.
Let me know when you're caught up to America.
Go slower, John. Thank you.
All right, America, can you proceed? Please speak slowly.
Hello, my name is Miracle. I am the current Engineering Society president. And I think I would be a good speaker because I can speak slowly.
Thank you, America. Hi, my name is Michael Bushman. For those who don't know, I'm the Vice President. We decided to move the speaker to default to the Vice President to provide an extra level of accountability to councilors and to bring things more under the Office of the President for governance. And I think that I have a lot of experience speaking and chairing the board meetings this term. I was Speaker for the NSHLAC Council last fall. And if I am selected to continue as Speaker, I'm sure that I'll perform competently. Thank you. Have we heard all candidates? Please submit your ballots.
Please fold your ballots in
And
once.
then for people on the call that I typed in the list.
Yeah, I put it in the URL link
And
on the shared agenda, but just to reiterate, the candidates are Jason Small, Katie Arnold, Mariko Shimoda, Michael Boschman.
And on your ballot, you can write up to 4 choices.
Please provide the number 1 for your first ranked choice, number 2 for your second ranked choice, so on and so on. That's how I would get into it. Votes.
And please fold your pieces of paper only once.
Hold up. Ready?
Thank you.
Has anybody online not had a chance to be able to send their vote to me over Teams?
We just emailed VP Fed, or Ed, right?
That also works.
Okay.
That's vped@feds.ca.
Okay.
Making a call for any other ballots in the room or online. Making a second call for any other ballots in the room or online. Seeing no
Sorry,
one.
this is June. I'm sending my email now. That's VPE.
VPED at feds.ca.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
June, let me know when you've managed to do that.
Yeah, it should be sent now.
Great.
Also, if you could actually just name out the people who sent in their votes, I think that would be easier for people to see if you actually received their votes.
Sure, I should be able to do that.
Okay, just going to do another check with the attendance. Is Kevin McGuire present in the call? Is Navya Mehta present in the call? Or in person? Okay, thank you. Rana, you are here. Is someone from the Cambridge campus present? Is someone from the Stratford campus present? Is someone from Renison present? And is someone from St. Jerome's present? Okay.
Just as a note, St. Jerome's needs a by-election because they don't have a constituency society over there with other seats.
And Renaissance Society is in a state of pretty much non-existence.
For those whose votes I have received Iace's, Diana's, Abigail's, Colin's, Sebastian's, Mackenzie's, and whoever, Svetlana, June, Victoria, and Amanda. One more.
You didn't get mine?
Did you send over Teams?
Yeah.
Okay. I have also received John's and Megan's. Megan? Megan. One final call for any votes. The polls are closed. I'll let you know the results in a minute.
Yes, we can do the secretary motion.
Right.
You need to switch.
Well, after you counted the ballots for the speaker, we will be moving on to the assistant secretary.
Secretary.
So,
Secretary, not assistant.
no, the secretary is Benjamin Easton.
Yeah, well, we have to pass that motion.
Oh, sorry, yeah. Just give me a moment. So the next motion is be resolved that council appoints the secretary of the corporation, Benjamin Easton, to serve as recording secretary of council until such time as he designates the recording secretary to take his place. Seneca moves it. Can I get a second for the motion? John Hunt seconds the motion. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seneca? John? Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we're going to proceed with the vote. And again, all those in favor, please raise your hands. If you're on the call, say aye and then say your name.
I know.
I Amanda.
I Sebastian.
I Virginia. I Svetlana. I Victoria. I Megan.
All
I
right.
Diana.
Is there
I
anyone?
Jude.
Is there any opposition to the motion?
Is there any abstention from the motion? All right.
Does anyone want their votes noted?
So are we still waiting on the results for the speaker? Okay, while we're waiting on that, we're going to move on to the assistant secretary position. Be resolved that council elects blank as assistant secretary. Can I get anybody wishing to nominate themselves? Or someone else?
So I will nominate John Hunt, but I also want to
I think
see the
thank you.
results of that election.
John Hunt declined.
Is there anyone who's waiting on the results of the speaker election for the assistant secretary position?
Well, I'm going on.
We should wait for the results.
Yeah.
All right, I can make a report. So eliminated in the first round of voting, America Shimoda. Eliminated in the second round of voting, Jason Small. And eliminated in the third round of voting, Michael Boschman. Katie Arnold is elected our next speaker.
I request that the vote counts be included in the minutes.
I will formalize them then.
Thank you. Congratulations, Katie Arnold. You may take over speaking for the meeting.
Can I just give you something later?
I can leave it there until my computer with me.
Mostly because I don't have that on the map. Excellent. So we have to ratify that, right?
A motion to amend.
Can I get a motion to amend the be it resolved? Edward, thank you, and second Americo, thank you. Does anyone have any discussion on amending this to include my name?
I love you.
Thank you. Excellent. Can I see all votes against adding my name to this line? Can I see any abstentions?
Noted.
Jason Small and Michael Boschman
Awesome.
would like their votes noted. Excellent. Okay, so we're going to move on to deputy speaker
Yeah.
elections. Okay. Can I see any, point of clarification?
We don't need to pass the motion.
We adopted it by opposition and abstentions.
No, that was an amendment, not.
No, you're right, you're totally right. Sorry, I'm dealing with a very bad headache right now. For clarification, as soon as we elect a deputy speaker, I'm going to relinquish the role to speaker today to that deputy speaker because I really want to lie down. So bear with me as I deal with this. So can we see any opposition to approving, be resolved that council elects Katie Arnold as speaker? Can I see any abstentions to that motion? Awesome.
I'm sorry, yeah, noted abstention.
Jason Small, noted abstention. Excellent. Thank you very much. So, can I see any nominations for deputy speaker?
That's right.
I nominate Jason Small.
Jason Small has been doubly nominated. Awesome. Are there any other nominations for deputy speaker?
Can somebody start creating ballots? Just, we have committee things later today, so we'll need a lot of ballots, so.
That's okay, we'll go grab some food paper from the office.
Thank you.
Michael, were you going to nominate someone?
Myself.
Okay. Motion is nominated. Michael, do you need help?
There we go, sure.
Perhaps it would have been better to send someone who didn't have to speak to be deputy speaker. All right, so we will give the candidates another 30 seconds to speak when Michael returns, I assume. Do you want me to list the candidates or, yeah?
Let me see. Yes, I think.
Ooh, I don't like it.
Well, that's reality. Okay, good.
This way over, thanks. Oh, there should be space there. Excellent, okay. Jason, do you want to speak without Michael here, or would you like to?
I
hear this?
don't care.
Excellent, so we'll hear from Jason first. You guys have to do a time update. Okay, when you're ready.
Yeah, hello again. In addition to what I previously said, I would like to point out that I do believe that Michael's survey as Speaker, Deputy Speaker interferes with him properly doing his busy role as President, with all due respect. But yeah, I think I would be well suited to ensure that the Assembly, including, I think last year I worked well with ensuring that online participants can fully participate as Deputy Speaker, so I would continue with that this year.
I have nothing further to add to my previous speech.
It's 2 whole seconds. Okay, so we will repeat the process that we just had, pending the creation of the ballots. Matt, can I just get people to email you again? Awesome. So you can email or message Matt again.
If you email me, please note that this is the Deputy Speaker ballot, just for avoid confusion.
That helps, yes. The ballots.
The candidates for assistant are
Jason Small and Dr. Coachman.
No, this isn't, no.
We're doing Deputy Speaker right now, so
Deputy. Thank you again. If you are going to email, please note in your email it's for Deputy Speaker, not Speaker, just so I can delineate that. Teams or VPED@feds.ca are both fine. Anybody who would like the ballots collected? You. America, if you wouldn't mind dropping one of my spot boxes.
All right, could someone please repeat the names of the candidates?
Yeah, so the candidates are Jason Small and Michael Boschman.
A call for any other ballots in the room. America, have you gotten a chance to vote yourself?
Yeah.
Excellent. Any other ballots in the room? Another call for any ballots in the room or online? All right, the polls are closed. Back to you in a minute.
Can we also have a confirmation of which online votes were
Yes,
received?
absolutely. If everybody is fine, if anybody missed their chance. I have received votes from Abigail, Ayla, Amanda, June, Diana, Colin, Sebastian, Mackenzie, Svetlana. And on Teams, I have received from John, Megan? Is there anybody who did not have a chance to vote?
So, are you comfortable moving on to Assistant Secretary?
Yeah.
So we will move on to nominations for Assistant Secretary while we wait for the result of that vote. Can I see any nominations for Assistant Secretary? Edward?
I nominate myself.
Excellent. Michael?
I nominate Navia Mehta.
Does Navia accept?
Yes.
I nominate June.
Who is that? No, I mean, who
I do
seconded?
not accept, but thank you.
Who made the nomination?
Edward, what's your last name?
Yay.
There. Can you spell your name for me?
That would be N-A-V-I-A.
N-A-V-Y-A.
Space M-E-H-T-A.
M-E-H-T-A. Good? Did I get that right? Nice to meet you, by the way. Okay. So we'll give.
Actually, I would run it by.
Okay, do we want to wait on the results then?
It'll be just 30 seconds.
And just, thank you. I want to note that the Assistant Secretary will be reporting to the Secretary, recording Secretary that's appointed to Council. And all secretaries report to the Secretary of the Corporation, which is kind of divorced from the rest of the officers a little bit. So that maintenance of legal records and minutes are done separate from enforcement of the decisions that come out of those. So just as an awareness factor.
Madam Speaker, I have results by, do you want the vote count?
Yes, please.
By a vote of 15 to 13, Jason Small has been elected Deputy Speaker.
Okay.
I request that count be in the minutes. Does he know it's rules? That's a legal fact. More than it.
Okay. Do you have any more nominations for Assistant Secretary?
So we've got one. Oh, right, you said that. I forgot that we had one. No, I don't think I tried John. Can I have a note in the minutes? I nominate John.
I already have one.
Okay, good. Yeah, I know.
Okay, do we want to,
So are there any further nominations? Actually, no, let's close, or do we want to close off the deputy speaker motion? Yeah.
for the motion be it resolved that council likes blank as deputy speaker, can I see a motion to amend to include Jason Small's name? Edward, mover, and a seconder. Matt, thank you for seconding. So now the amendment says that we are including Jason Small. Jason Small has won the election. Can I see all opposition to including Jason Small's name? Can I see any abstentions?
Noted abstention.
Noted.
And Schlot, President A, Mayor Shimoda, and Councilor Jason Small noted abstaining. Thank you. So now the motion now reads, Deputy Speaker, be it resolved that Council elects Jason Small as Deputy Speaker. Can I see any opposition to the motion as amended? Can I see any abstentions to the motion as amended?
Noted
Jason noted abstaining. Is that I got? Jason noted abstaining for the whole motion. Excellent. So now we've adopted Jason as our Deputy Speaker. I'm going to go like down and relinquish the role of Speaker to Jason right now. I promise to take my meds next time.
Okay, so we will now proceed to, we'll now return to the position of Assistant Secretary. So we've so far had nominees Edward Yang and Nadia Mehta. Are there any further nominations for this position? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to statements. So Edward and Nadia will each have 30 seconds. Let me get a timer started. Are you caught up with minutes, Seneca?
Yes.
Okay, Edward, you will go first. Please make sure you're near a microphone. Yeah, you're near that one, okay. So yeah, you will have 30 seconds whenever you are ready.
All right, so my name is Edward Yang. I'm an engineering counselor. I think I'll be suited for this role because I have done secretary roles in the past with smaller groups, and I think as assistant secretary, I can help the secretary fill out the minutes and all the crucial documents that are needed to keep the council in well-functioning order and keep everyone informed. So if elected, I will help make sure that the secretary is able to carry their duties as mandated by bylaws.
Okay, thank you. Whenever Seneca is done, Navia can speak. Okay, Navia, you have 30 seconds whenever you are ready.
So, hi, I'm Navya Mehta. I'm the current counselor for mathematics, and while I do have previous experience with secretarial responsibilities, that primarily comes with engagement in undergraduate activities on campus, including engineering design teams, the F1 outreach processes, and so on and so forth. And so I believe that being appointed to this role, I can execute the responsibilities to the best of my ability.
Okay, thank you for that. So we will proceed to a vote. Voting will be the same parameters as the last two votes. So yeah, ballots can be distributed. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think it's. I don't want this on the record, but as a side, I am glad that these officer positions are all being contested this year. And that we are starting the year with 4 distinct people, 4 multiple distinct people in their positions.
Please check that you don't have ballots stuck together. These ones seem particularly sticky.
And please return your conflict of interest form at the earliest opportunity.
I will try.
You have a ballot?
Seneca, you too, when you have the chance. Conflict of
I already
interest.
submitted one.
Is it, okay, it's on the top.
It is, I put it in the file. I filled it out and stuck it in.
All right. For votes that I have via email, I have Abigail, Svetlana, Edward, I have Amanda, Mackenzie, Sebastian, Ayla. Over Teams, I have both John and Megan's. I just received Colin's by email. Are there any more ballots to be submitted? Any more ballots to be submitted? All right, the polls are closed. I'll be back to you in a second.
So yeah, I'm just right now doing a check of conflict of interest forms while Matt does his count.
Take a, while you do that, we just take a quick immediate recess.
You can just go. Victoria Rodney, have you submitted a conflict of interest form? Victoria, if you can hear me in the call, please send a conflict of interest form to speaker@feds.ca as soon as you are able.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I think some of the people on the conference
Yeah, that's being controlled through Seneca. Wait, can't see what?
the names, they just.
Right, yeah, I can't control that.
Clause that you're working on.
She's going off the type one in there. Wait,
This is.
can you get into the chat and type in the two candidate names?
Sorry, what do you want the chat?
Give them the candidate names.
Oh, did somebody not have a chance to submit their? Or is this the secretary?
Like, I don't know if it's just me or there's other people that also can, but those on the Microsoft Teams, all I'm seeing for the incoming shared screen is a black screen, and that's it.
Oh.
I don't think like blue screen. Yeah, me too.
So somehow the share screen, Seneca, is that Seneca right there? Did anybody not have a chance to submit though?
There's coffee and snacks, but if you guys think it's interesting.
Everybody, June and Ayla were both unable to vote. If everybody's fine with it, I'd like to give them the opportunity to email me again.
Yeah, sure.
It won't affect the outcome of the vote, just so you know.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Sorry, Matt, you didn't get my vote?
Oh, sorry, I did get your vote. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.
Ayla, do you intend on submitting a vote?
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Ayla, do you intend on submitting a vote? You can if you'd like. It won't influence the outcome.
I emailed a vote, so if it doesn't influence the outcome, then no.
Oh, I see. Sorry, you just didn't put the name, so
Oh, that's because I couldn't, so I did
Yeah.
submit a name,
You're all
and I
good.
couldn't see the name. So like, I didn't know if I spelled the person's name.
Apologies.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
So by a vote of 18 to 8 with 1 spoil, Edward is won the election.
Okay, congratulations. Can I have a motion to,
18 to 8 with 1.
yeah, and can I have a motion to amend that motion to include Edward's name? Moved by Helen. Is there a seconder? Brendan?
Yep.
Okay. Is there any debate on this? Okay. Any opposed to this amendment? Any abstentions to this amendment? Edward, do you want it noted? Okay. The amendment passes unanimously. Is there any further discussion on the motion to elect Edward? Seeing none, any votes opposed? Any abstentions? Would you like your abstention noted? Okay, Edward has a noted abstention. This vote passes unanimously. Now, the Assistant Secretary, Seneca, do you want Edward to take over? Since technically,
Just a second. You notably abstained on both the amendment and the motion.
Just make a motion on
If you'd like to take over, you certainly can.
I would, except my laptop would die after the reading, so
You can take over with my laptop if you want.
or you can come sit here and plug in.
I would be okay with that.
Do you get that?
Pre-populated list. a couple things. I'll send you this on Facebook. What's your profile picture? Should be wearing a hat. Your profile picture should be wearing a hat.
Yes.
So it could be a helmet in this picture.
Limits are sticky hard hats. Unless you're moving, then you're not.
There was a tall structure.
Actually, I'm going to resend it to you because I'm putting in the vote counts.
The multi-grant speaker election.
I would like to assure people that things will move apart, go on faster in future meetings. But obviously, there's some little interruptions.
This is round one. These are exhaustive. These are specials. Whatever format makes sense for the Very efficient.
Just got to send the updated version of the vote counts to you as well.
Hi, what are we waiting on right now?
Just to get the new assistant secretary ready to take minutes.
Okay, thanks.
Question over here.
Yeah, Matt?
I'm wondering if we can make
In the meantime, are we going to vote to destroy the ballot?
I was going to, if I may, Mr. Speaker, suggest
Can you do a single motion for that after all the committee stuff?
that we amend the agenda to include a motion to destroy the ballots after the last committee vote.
Can we do that when we get to approving the agenda?
I will withdraw. That's
Just because
more acceptable to yourself.
we have another set of motions before we get to approval of the agenda. So yes, that is a very good idea.
Okay, and then the second one is, do I need to document anything? No, I already have it. Put that one to be destroyed section. Okay, Edward, send me the updated copy now. Just confirm that there's on top of page 2, there should be something that says round 1, round 2, round 3, and then Victor. If you can confirm that, then we do have the correct version. Thank you, sir. Oh, good. One second. It says it's sent on my end. Okay. And also, you know, to do that, it's faster.
Just an update for everyone online. We're still just transitioning with minutes. We should be underway soon.
Okay, good.
Sorry, is it on page 2?
On top, there should be round 1, round 2, round 3, and Victor.
Yeah.
Okay, then you have the updated version, so you're gonna wanna scroll to. So you see that I pre-populated the next couple items for you, including a motion I intended to make because I was typing. So when I was secretary, if I want to say something, repopulate what I want to say. We're right before ratification of society and pro tem designates, so.
Yeah, so, okay, very good. Okay, so yeah, we're now moving on to the next item, ratification of society pro tem designates. These are people that have been selected by their societies instead of societies to take their place. Council must ratify these choices. So there's two such motions. The first motion is be it resolved that council ratify Zara Hassan as designated for the Science Society as selected by Science Society President Veronica Chan. Is there a mover for this motion? Seneca and a seconder, Marico.
Point of information.
Yeah.
So if the designates were here and they voted before they were ratified, does that affect the?
No, because ratification is something where, like, they were in place, we just have to confirm it. If we refuse to ratify, then from this point on, they would no longer have. But because the selection was already made by the societies, no, they still, yeah, they were entitled to vote for the letter service.
It's for you.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, point of order, are we still going to be having the side stream, not side stream, the sharing of the desktop?
Yeah, Seneca.
Oh, sorry, it looks like that did, fine.
Yeah, Seneca will resolve that momentarily.
Just continue to run from the top, sorry guys, just a moment. There you go, is it working now?
Yep, thanks.
All right, let me go back to where we were. Sorry about that, it's a little glitchy, I think. We'll get this sorted for the next one. Because there's a command in the LaTeX file for how to populate that. So the point of order was that screen sharing stopped, and or point of privilege, I guess, was the screen sharing stopped, and I resolved it.
Yeah, and before that, there was a you have that noted. Okay, is there any further points of discussion in relation to this motion? Okay, seeing none, I will bring this motion to a vote. Any opposition to that ratification? Any abstentions? Do you want it noted? What's your name?
Zara.
Okay, Zara has a note. Oh, yes, okay, thank you. Actually, technically, you should be Merkin first president on voting.
Under Robert's rules, you're entitled to vote for yourself, just so you know.
Oh, you actually, well, this is.
Your right to vote for yourself is enshrined.
Okay. Okay, so that's one abstention. Okay, motion passes unanimously. We will now move on to the next ratification motion. Be it resolved that council ratifies Alia Abs as designated for the Environment Student Society as selected by Environment Student Society President Michelle Giesbrecht. Is there a mover for this motion? Matt Garrett, the seconder, the Seneca. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay,
Sorry, Ayla speaking. I just want to confirm, like, this is until our election begins in 2 weeks. Like, this isn't for the whole term, correct? Or is this for the whole term? Because I think there was some confusion earlier with this issue.
The appointment of a designate lasts for the entire term. I suppose we could amend the motion to restrict it until a by-election fills the seat. But
No, okay, no, because originally Michelle and I thought that this would be like it was for the whole term, and then there was some confusion where it said like a by-election had to be held. So there's currently myself and someone else running for president for the spring term. So I was just wondering like what this means if this does go through.
So the society can always choose to put somebody else in the place and remove you as designate. So if you lose the by-election for the spring term and have been named the designate, then ESS can change the designate to be whoever won.
Okay, so going off that, if the council agree to move forward with ratifying me as the designate for the spring term, will we still have to hold a by-election?
You're holding the by-election for the role of president, not for the role of designate on Students' Council.
Okay, I see. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Good question.
Okay, nothing further.
Okay, does anyone else have any points to raise?
Can I get the name of the person involved?
That was all, yeah. My general apologies for mispronouncing names. About what I've done so far and what I will have to do for the rest of the meeting. Okay, so then I will bring this motion to a vote. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Okay, seeing none, the motion passes unanimously. Okay, we will now move on to our next item in the agenda, which is approval of the agenda. I will assume this motion. Is there any points? Yes, Seneca.
I'd like to make an amendment to the agenda respecting the changes that I emailed to council 2 days ago. It should already be in the minutes, and we should be good, Edward, but as would be, we'd be amending the agenda to include the motion. Whereas the Board of Directors approved a fee increase of up to 56 cents of the Federation of Students fee, reflecting the costs associated with the organizational restructure approved on 7 May 2019 at its 10 May 2019 emergency meeting. Be resolved that, in accordance with Article 4.21B2 of the bylaws, Council ratifies the increase.
Okay, is there a seconder to this amendment? Matt
Second.
Harris. Okay, is there any discussion about this being added to the agenda? Okay, we will now vote on this amendment. Any opposed to it being added to an agenda? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Are there any further points about the agenda? Yes, Matt Harris.
I would like to add a motion subsequent to the last committee appointment that council approve the destruction of all ballots relating to elections conducted during the meeting.
Okay, is there a seconder to that amendment?
Second.
That's John.
Fine, okay, John can second that. Is there any discussion about this amendment? Seeing none, I'll bring it to a vote. Is there any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously. Is there any further points in relation to the agenda? Actually, I'd like to raise a point as speaker, or as, anyways, since I believe it is unlikely at this rate that we will complete the agenda by 3:30 p.m., I would like to request that the adjournment time be pushed to 4:30. Can I have a seconder for this motion? Matt Garrett. Do people want me to further justify this? Yeah.
Just to clarify, this doesn't mean we actually will adjourn at 4:30. We could adjourn well before 4:30. It just means that if the meeting does go long because of committee appointments, then we can actually get to the business on the agenda.
Yeah, just to be clear, I actually have to go on a bus back to Toronto, so I don't want to stay here especially late. Okay, I'll bring that amendment to a vote. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Do you want your abstention noted? Okay, item passes unanimously.
No.
It was a no.
I do believe there was a vote against.
Oh, sorry, is it?
I thought so. I can't up on that end.
Did someone vote against? Anyways, if no one requests a vote on it, actually doesn't matter. It passes. Okay, so the agenda has been approved. I will now read the territorial acknowledgement.
Actually, if I might, I prepared something a little bit extra for the territorial acknowledgement. I'm going to read it.
Okay, fine, go ahead.
So, the idea behind this was that we always just have the standard tradition territorial acknowledgement that we read out, and at one of our training sessions, someone prepared something a little bit better and a little bit more in depth to like actually take a bigger care towards the territorial acknowledgement. So I wanted to continue the tradition, and the exec wanted to continue the tradition by alternating, doing something more at each of our meetings. So I dug in and I found a little bit more history to give some context to what we have that we usually say. And the University of Waterloo is situated on the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. The primary traditional language spoken in the region of Waterloo and beyond is Anishinaabe. The region of Waterloo contains land protected by the Haldeman Treaty in 1784 for the settlement of Six Nations displaced by Six Nations alliance with the British Crown during the United States of America's War of Independence. The Haldeman Tract, as became known, consists of 6 miles on each side of the Iace, or the Grand River, of which approximately 675,000 acres from the mouth of the river at Lake Erie to a distance of approximately 88 miles was allocated for Six Nations use by Simcoe Patent. This left undelivered to Six Nations approximately 36 miles of land that was promised under the Haldeman Treaty, corresponding to about 275,000 acres. There are 9,000 people who identify as Aboriginal in Waterloo, and more than 15,000 who identify as having Aboriginal ancestry. These people have poorer physical and mental health outcomes than non-Indigenous Canadians because there are significant inequities in employment, housing, education, and income, and because there is reduced access to health care, in particular, Indigenous traditional healing practices. There has also been a significant loss of Indigenous languages because of the residential school system, which banned the use of any language other than English or French. Indigenous populations in Waterloo are young and have experienced significant growth year over year, and these poor health outcomes continue to affect people. I would like to ask that we take a moment of silence for Indigenous people and others taking the lead.
Okay, I'd like to thank the President for that very comprehensive statement.
Yep, I'll send it to you.
So we're now going to continue to the next item is approval of the minutes. So this is now the minutes of, so be it resolved that council approves the minutes of the 31st March 2019 regular meeting as presented. Yes, Seneca? Seneca, you wish to move. Is there a seconder? Sorry. Yeah, you second? Okay, Matt, here a second. Yes, Seneca?
I'd like to note to council that Jason Small sent me a list of changes to the minutes that were fairly minor editorial corrections and some grammar. There's also, because we do the minutes and agendas in LaTeX, there was you used programmed names for titles, and one of the names had misspelling that was at the top, and for every subsequent edition it was also misspelled, so there was a bunch of like blank moved something and you had no idea what blank was. So that's been corrected now. I sent an updated version with all of Jason's changes to him this morning. So if council's comfortable, I'd like that to be understood to be the version that's being adopted. Because again, nothing of substance was changed. It was just clarifying and grammatical changes.
Okay, thank you for that. Are there any further comments about the minutes? Okay, seeing none, we'll bring it to vote. I'll just remind people that given how few people here were at this meeting, that might be a reason to abstain. I'm just going to say that, put that up there. Any opposed to approving the minutes? Any abstentions? Okay. Any noted abstentions? Michael Beauchemin. Okay. So with that, the minutes have been unanimously approved. Next motion. Be it resolved that council accepts the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance membership electronic ballot report provided by the 2018-2019 Secretary and ratifies the results of the electronic ballot. Seneca, you wish to move that? Is there a seconder? Michael? Okay. Do you want me to give back to the Senator? Do you want to? Or Matt, actually, yeah.
Sure. So, pursuant mostly to council procedure, there was supposed to be a vote on reduced membership last January. That deadline ended up getting pushed up kind of against the end of the council year last year. And so council ordered an electronic ballot to be ratified here at this meeting on whether we would or would not be staying in USA. Seneca informed me that the vote was in favor of remaining, so this is here for ratification.
Okay, are there any further comments? Yes, Seneca?
If you haven't taken the time to read the report I put out, understandable. Council voted 16 to 0, 16 in favor, 0 opposed, and 4 abstaining on the question of whether or not to remain a member of USA. So if this is ratified, we will remain a member of the Ontario Undergraduate Student Alliance for the next 3 years until we conduct another review.
I am also going to mention anyone here who ends up getting elected into Iace, the Education Advisory Council, I highly recommend you read through parts of the USA review report, which was a longer report. I think it's been sent to at some point in the last couple of months, because Iace will still have further considerations with some other recommendations made in that report.
The council mailing list got it. These people would not have been on the list at that time.
Okay, then I will ensure it gets. Okay, any further comments? Okay, I'll bring this to a vote. Are there any in opposition? Any abstentions?
John.
I'm sorry, who was
John
that?
Hunt.
Okay, yes, you want that noted?
Thanks.
Okay, seeing that, the item passes unanimously. We will now proceed with reports. We have our executive reports. I will ask the executives please keep their time limit of 2 minutes for their oral reports, just because of, so we can get things moving. I trust that councilors have read the written reports. So, Michael, whenever you're ready, you will go first.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. My report in the council agenda package is relatively comprehensive. There are some items that happened more recently. Mostly these are just continued meetings with staff members and with university folks as they get acclimated to the role. And as I am able, I will share more information with you. Some things that are coming down the line. We are hopefully expecting a letter from the provost that is going to be an open letter directing instructors to include more or integrate mental health curriculum better, or mental health into their curriculum better. And there are more details about that. I'm unable to share those yet. The university is entering the final stages of their strategic plan action committee, and their current plan is to have that strategic plan adopted in October by the Board of Governors. Does anyone have any questions?
I have a question for President Bushman.
Yes, ma'am.
I received a question from one of my constituents in response to the brand review survey. And the question was essentially, is the brand review taking away time and resources from feds that could otherwise be spent on advocacy? And Vice President Velling did address the financial aspect, but I was wondering if you could speak to how your team is managing the workload and ensuring that advocacy is a priority.
Thank you. To answer that, I'll begin by speaking to the use of full-time staff for the rebranding process. From April 1st to August 31st, we have estimated that it is about 70% of one full-time staff equivalent of their time is used on this rebrand, and that's including all the meetings that the executive and the directors are having and all the follow-up that's being done. The person who is leading the rebrand efforts is a person in marketing who usually focuses on clubs and services, for which there is not much going on right now. And while they would not necessarily be twiddling their thumbs otherwise, this is an excellent opportunity for them to spend some time so we can actually go through the process appropriately. And I'll further note that marketing has long felt that it cannot market effectively under the current brand structure, and that doing this now will save time and effort and allow us to better engage with students in the future. Does that appropriately answer your question?
Can I just paraphrase? So in summary, most of the marketing efforts for the rebrand are being undertaken by a full-time staff member with oversight by the executive committee?
Oversight by the executive committee and the full-time staff members director. There are other full-time marketing staff members who are focused on the other continued marketing efforts, including advocacy and governance.
Yes, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who was speaking on the minutes?
Okay, so Michael, on your report, you said you wanted to have idea about councils when they want to hold a volunteer staff social. Would you like to hold a straw poll now about that?
That's something I believe would be more appropriate done in a follow-up email.
Okay, sure,
with,
just checking.
scheduling tool.
Okay, so if there's nothing further for that, we will move on to the next report of the Vice President of Education, whenever you're ready, Matt. Actually, whenever I hold this ready, 2 seconds. Yeah. Okay, whenever you're ready, Matt.
Hello, everyone. First of all, congratulations on your elections and welcome to council. I'm pleased to be able to provide this brief report to you. You should have received the written copy of my report, and this is kind of the format in which I want to go forward, unless anybody would like to advise me on going in a different direction, in which case I'd welcome it. Please feel free to send me an email there. Beyond what I ended up putting in my report, these first couple of weeks have been really great to start working with a new team, and I ended up focusing on making sure that we're doing hiring and onboarding for each of the commissioner positions, as well as doing some of the stakeholder relations pieces of this role, and making sure that other execs get introduced to the stakeholders on campus that are valuable for them to meet. I don't know if anybody has any specific questions, but you're welcome.
Are there any questions for the Vice President of Education? And I just want to clarify with executive reports, questions do not have to be related to the report. If you have a question on anything that's within the executive's portfolio, you can ask it at this point. Okay, I just want to ask, do you have commissioners hired, Matt?
No, the entire team is not.
Okay. So I will then go on to the next report as the Vice President Student Life. Amanda, you can go ahead.
Yeah. Hi. So I had a very brief report that I sent out originally just because I had started a couple days later than my fellow execs, so my first day was on Monday. But so far I've been having a lot of discussions with the head of the campus life department, who's meeting every day, and talking about how we can improve clubs and service management, as well as talking with Amanda Cook, who's the Sexual Violence Response Coordinator. So we've been making and trying to talk more about sexual violence on campus. I will also be attending a Policy 33 revisions meeting coming up soon. We're just trying to pick a date as of right now. I am also just finishing up the hiring process for my equity commissioner. So the 7th email was just sent out a couple hours ago, so I'm just waiting for it to be officially accepted, but hopefully that job will be starting coming Monday. Orientation is also new to my portfolio, so I've been meeting with full-time staff to talk about what that's going to look like, especially with the Student Choice Initiative and how opt-outs are going to affect orientation. So that's something that we're looking into a lot. That came up quite a bit in the steering committee meeting, but it's looking good. I will also be meeting with Chris Reed hopefully in the next few weeks to talk about dawn training, so hopefully that can be ready for the fall. That's it for me.
Okay, Amanda, I'm going to ask that you maybe at some later point send the key points over to Edward Yang, just because he didn't get everything down.
Okay.
Okay.
Just like with our main points?
Yeah, it can be a short form.
Yeah, so talking with clubs and services for management.
Send to me later on.
Like if you could just email it to him.
Oh, email later. Okay, sorry, it was hard to hear.
Okay, are there any questions for Amanda? Okay, seeing none, we'll go to the final executive report of the Vice President of Operations and Finance. Edward, are you ready? Okay, Senator, go ahead.
Hey folks, welcome everybody. We successfully transitioned all of our government bodies and ourselves into these roles. Still kind of learning the ropes. I am excited to start kicking off the budget cycle for this year and anticipate having a budget to council for the fiscal year budget by no later than August. So the way the budgeting cycle works is there's a 4-month budget that covers us for like an interim period of the spring while the exec board and council kind of learn the ropes. And then the 12-month budget picks up or supersedes the 4-month budget as soon as it's been approved. I've been working pretty closely with the general manager and accounting department to try to start that process up and provide things to our budget committee. And in addition to that, I have been spending a considerable amount of time on the Student Choice Initiative, which is affecting ancillary fee, opt-out ancillary fees versus compulsory ancillary fees. So this means gathering fee descriptions from each of the societies and breaking down the federation fee into components that will each have a compulsory or optional portion on request for students to opt out of, as well as fee descriptions for each one of those components. It's a rather difficult task, I'm glad, because it's the ball's in the university's court for the most part. They get to decide what is compulsory and what is not, and I have to make the best case I can for all of those things. So I will say that I inherited a very well organized approach to this from the previous Vice President of Student Life, Savannah Richardson. And so I have her to thank for it being easy to walk into and pick up. That's not to say that the process itself is easy. To put in perspective, we're anticipating about 20 to 40% optional fees out of the current Federation of Students fee, based on categories that the Ministry of Training, Colleges, and Universities has outlined. So that you can find that in my written report. A couple other items to note is...
Please, it's been 2 minutes of keep stepping on in your written report.
Yeah, sorry, there's a lot of changes that happened this spring term. So UPass health and dental opt-ins are occurring, so we know people that need to be opted into health and dental or to the UPass program that have special accommodations or otherwise should have access to UPass or would like UPass access, let me know. We migrated to a new council mail list, so you should have all received emails through that. If anyone isn't, please let me know. And I'll be preparing a review of financial health for feds and a proposal on a capital improvement fund that will come to council probably sometime towards the end of the spring term.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Seneca? Okay, seeing none, that concludes our executive report. So, Board of Directors, the recently elected chair of the board, Conor Plante, has submitted a written report that you should have received by emails halfway through this week. Because he was only elected a few days ago, he had that late report, and he also unfortunately could not make it today. But you can always contact him by email at using chair@vets.ca. Are there any comments about his written report? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to representative reports. Given that this is the first meeting and your roles only started 12 days ago, I'm not expecting councilors to have reports for this meeting. Moving forward, for each subsequent meeting, you should, ideally as a constituency, produce a written report, and you could also present an oral one. So I'm assuming, although I'll go through just in case any of you have stuff to report. Applied Health Sciences Caucus, Arts Caucus, Engineering Caucus.
We're doing great.
And there's a thumbs up from both the NSHOP presidents. Environment Caucus. Okay, Math Caucus, would you like to talk about your report? Yes, Alan.
Yeah, I'm just going to start off our report.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so Math SOC, so I'm Alan, I'm the president of Math SOC this term. Just wanted to say that Math SOC is transitioning well, and looking to bring in more of our feds counselors to participate with MathSoc this term. So we're trying out a new initiative. We're using Slack for MathSoc, and I believe most, if not all, of our feds counselors this term are now on our MathSoc Slack as well. And we have a channel for feds counselors. We're also going to be putting the feds counselors' office hours on our MathSoc office hours board, and Jude and Diana are going to talk more about that.
Okay, whoever one of those wants to speak next, go ahead. Jude, Diana, are any of you, I'm assuming you guys are still on the call?
Yes, okay, sorry. So I'm just going to give a brief update on our current situation for office hours and also what our plan for outreach for office hours would be. So right now, we've collected all of the counselors' office hours except for Rona, but I believe that should be incoming soon. We currently have office hours mostly online, since most of the counselors next term will not be on campus, unfortunately. So most of our office hours are done through Calendly, as well as Sean's office hours are through email, but we hope that that will be easy for students to work with us. Also, we plan on sharing our office hours to the Fed's app page so that we'll have better engagement with students, since once again it is online for the most part, and we hope to also coordinate with MathSoc and Speaker at Fed, so to better promote and also engage with students once again.
So something that we started working on as counselors for math is figuring out how we can have better outreach and increase awareness of like the different things we're doing. So our three main focuses are increasing awareness of like the math counselors Facebook page, which currently has 200 something likes, which is very little for the number of math students we actually have. Increasing awareness of the council meetings to like our constituents, and increasing awareness of our office hours. So Julie covered the last point. So regarding increasing the awareness for the Facebook page, we want to do that since that's the primary method for us to interact with our constituents on a large scale. And for increasing the awareness of council meetings, so we're thinking of possibly posting in the large math faculty Facebook groups, but we were also thinking that it may be effective to post in the larger class of 20 something pages that are faculty agnostic. So we would like to work with the larger council to do this, since all of us fall under those groups. So we have this other groups or counselors who are interested, let us know. We just want to figure out how we can better increase engagement with our constituents and also your constituents. And that's it for me.
Hey everyone, John here. I will just be briefly giving an update on the tuition issues and taking questions on my OSAP report that I submitted. So regarding the tuition issues, we sent a letter. This is from Dion, Bilal, June, Tiana, Alex, and I. We sent the letter to the Vice President, Academic and Provost, the Dean of Math, the Student Awards and Financial Aid. We discussed issues where college students are overcharged tuition. This is across the board, so not just math related. And then we also talked about the 62% increase in CS tuition. We did receive a response from the Dean of Math. They said they're looking into it and they'll respond shortly. We've also been active with incoming first years affected by the 62% increase. They really don't know what they're going to be doing, and we just try to give them help where we can. We have been asking Waterloo to give more updates on what support will be given to the students, and we do have more meetings planned in the near future. Regarding my report on OSAP, this is the OSAP cuts that occurred recently. I'll just go over the recommendations from that. First major one was for better advocacy for students impacted by the cuts. Second major one was looking into the impact on international students, potentially being forced to make up for the shortfalls in domestic tuition being cut. And the last one was development of channels for dispersed surveys we need to look into that. So perhaps something where we could have, if we at council want to find out something, we push off to societies. Push off is maybe not the best word, but we kindly ask societies to look into it, and then societies can reach out through clubs, and we can get a large distribution of students through that. Are there any questions on my report?
First of all, Edward, is there something you were missing? If it would be possible for you to send me a summary of the things you covered with the law, that would be nice afterwards.
Towards any specific person or?
Everyone who's gone so far, because you've gone through a lot. Most of it, but like a summary if possible.
Okay, are there any questions from the Mass counselors? Yes, Senator?
Sorry, John, would you be able to speak to what better advocacy means to you from your OSAP report? Does that mean budget prioritization and increased budget for advocacy, or what are you looking at when you say better advocacy?
That was left unclear to the students. However they interpreted it, would it be how they what would determine whether or not they responded yes or no? To me, yes. It can be allocating more funds. It can be, putting it, if there's an advocacy priority, literally put it at the top of the stack of papers on the desk, and say, all right, well, I'll prioritize this over this other matter. Really, it's just meant to influence our decisions later on if we are given any opportunity to say, do we put more time and resources into this, or do we put it into something else? It should just help influence us to say, okay, let's do more of this advocacy for the students that have been affected by the cuts.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Okay. Okay, I will now proceed.
Edward,
Yes.
if you can, I don't think I have your email. If you can send an email maybe to the council mailing list so that everyone has your email address, and we can then, anyone that speaks and needs to send you a summary, they can do that.
If they send it to the speaker address, I'll make sure it gets forwarded.
Okay, perfect, thanks.
So for reference, if anyone needs to send key points, send it to speaker, and I'll get it. Thank you.
Okay, so I will now proceed to the other caucuses. The Science Caucus. Cambridge isn't present. Kitchener. Stratford isn't present. St. John's isn't present. Renison isn't present. Okay, Officer of Council reports. I don't think I'm not speaker anyways, but so speaker isn't here right now. Deputy speaker, I don't think I have anything to report on now. There'll be some announcements at the end, and maybe we'll come later with stuff. Secretary is also, I don't know, I'm assuming Edward, you don't have a report. Okay. And we do not have any committee commissioners or service reports. So we will now proceed to business arising. So the first item here is election referendum debrief report. Yeah, Michael, you can go ahead and talk about this.
Okay. First of all, Richard conveys his apologies that the report is not yet ready. It was a greater undertaking than he anticipated when he first took it on, so it was not completed within 2 weeks, and has since been unable to complete it, partially because of some illness issues. And I asked him to provide me with something from him to read out to council today, background or an update on the report or something, but he did not provide it.
Okay, are there any questions or discussion by any councilors on this matter?
Sorry, just to give some perspective here, the former president was overhauling our elections and referendum procedures because they're currently not terribly well suited to handle the scope and types of problems we've had in elections and referenda, including, like, for instance, the council was trying to decide where to put commas in certain referendum questions for the general election back in the fall, and that was just not prudent use of time for any counselors, and most everybody thought that it would be better delegated to a committee, so there's been an overhaul of how the procedures in the works. I'm eagerly anticipating the report because I think it will have some good proposed changes, but again, it's not ready, I suppose.
Thank you. Is there anything further? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed to the next item, which is the Federation Diversity and Inclusion Report. Seneca, you can talk about that.
Perfect. This was actually an item that was brought up by Kira Matt for the general meeting in the winter term. Because the general meeting was quorum, I offered to bring it to council, and council didn't have much time left in the last governing year and asked that we consider it in the new year, so that's what this is. I reached out to Kira again to ask what she believes to be the value of something like this and where this would be beneficial. And if I can read the statement that she provided.
Yes.
She said that a diversity, inclusion, and equity report generally would detail the practices of facilitating the recruiting, integration, and promotion of women, members of visible minority groups, indigenous peoples, and people with disabilities, so that as a business, feds can achieve a workforce that is fully representative of our student community. They believe that having a record and making sure that feds is able to see on paper who we have working for us, students particularly, is extremely important, and that doing a report on this would be a way to hold the Federation accountable for hiring practices and general business practices. This would be through assessment of gender, race, religion, orientation, and ability, among other things. As a part-time or former part-time employee of feds, Kira has seen firsthand all of the good work that feds is able to do, and that this discussion is in no way meant to be an attack on feds, but rather an opportunity to learn from the Federation, learn from our current practices and how to improve them, and that feds is ultimately a corporation, and that research shows that diversity in all aspects should be prioritized. It's noted that diversity in the workplace fosters innovation, retains talent better, and largely improves a corporation's performance. And it shouldn't be an afterthought, but should be more of a priority. In the long run, Kira believes this would do us a lot of good to see who is making and the impact on policy and student issues, and to make sure that we're being represented and supported and reflected adequately as a student undergraduate population. So in addition to that, I did take the time to discuss with Kira what she thought of the Students' Choice Initiative and if this was still a good opportunity. And generally, the conclusion that I came to from that discussion was that while optically this is not something that the government might like, we're not here to represent the government, we're here to represent students. And if this is something students would like to see, then we should probably start having those conversations. This is by no means a decision to make today. Just an opportunity to discuss what maybe people want to see in a report like that, if people want to see a report like that generated, and then that can be a conversation that maybe the exec take back and try to put together documentation on for council.
When you have the chance, please send that statement over to everyone. Okay, so I will now open up the floor to discussion on this subject. Yes.
I don't know if you can see me, but I'm just here to
Speak up a little bit.
Hi, it's Caroline Dack. I'm the Iace president. I think a report like this is really important, and I think it's great how this is being brought forward. And I just think it's something that could be very valuable for the community, just for people to kind of see like areas where we're succeeding, where we're lacking, and kind of what we can do to go forward and make things better.
Yes, Rhonda?
So I know when RAISE was being created, the university wanted evidence that there was like a need for it, and there was no such information
motion in order to give them, or are they taken in and out of this session?
I think we can take in feedback, and it can be part of an ongoing conversation, I think. I think if this is something council did want us to go forward with, then it'd probably be something that, particularly from like an HR side, my role, and then from more of an equity lens, I think Amanda's role would definitely look at and try to prioritize. But I'm just conscious of the fact that the stuff that's already built up on our plates. So this is definitely something we can look into if people want. I just would encourage council to have patience, because with the other number of other stuff that we are currently dealing with, particularly Student Choice Initiative, and the beginning of term, it's probably not going to happen early in the spectrum if it happens. So I would encourage a little bit of patience there, but otherwise, if this is something that you would like us to do, I'll take that away from this.
Okay, I will say then in that case, councilors at a later time have come up with specific thoughts, like say things that should be included in such a report, that they should email them to Senator and Amanda. So if there's nothing further at this point, we will move on to the next item, ratification of the, yes, Marathon?
Can I request a break for like 5 minutes for all of us?
Yes, okay, sure, yeah, does that have to be passed, or can I just call this? Yeah, I think it's proceeding that way. Yes, okay, I will call 5-minute recess. We will resume at 2:30.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, by the way. Like, I know council can be a little intimidating, but
I'm literally so intimidated, Seneca.
I know you are. All the people here are definitely most intimidated.
Well, yes, maybe because this is the time that's in the agenda. So yeah, you can call although technically it's me that yes. Okay. No, but that's just the duration of it's but yeah, what matters is you stay until the time noted.
Okay. Do you think it would be appropriate for me to let someone know when they pick, or should I just go?
It would, yeah. Like, you could just like 2 minutes. You don't have to say anything.
Okay, I'll make sure you do.
Yeah.
So Jess was the president and then Mary was the wife, but I really like worked with so Jess is
start off because I'm the rest of this.
Where does
It's going to be lots of fun trying to keep those making nominations because we're going to be jumping back and forth. But you're going to just be like, I'm going to ask you just write them in order in the minute in the agenda, even though in reality we'll be going back and forth. It doesn't actually.
That's you know what's happening. There's no discussion. Discussions.
Well, they're not going to be. These are the nominations. These are the statements. This is the policy.
Like I'm not concerned. That's just me. More concerned about getting this discussion.
I don't know. I'll just leave it.
I was considering the next one.
What?
What's the number, please?
What under we feeling?
You know when 40 people were just like typing away, writing every single word down?
Oh yeah, the courthouses.
Yeah, the way it's done is stenography, which is not the normal typing.
Right.
I tried learning it, it's like learning for like you need this.
They use a special keyboard.
There is software to emulate that on the laptop.
I think you just need to come up with your own.
Even with short form though.
You have the video recording that you can go back to.
I do know that, so I am like jumping ahead and things going by, but like I also realize that the video recording is not be the greatest. Especially if you're calling it.
think have, this year tomorrow has to be hired, and that position has to be hired. The person who was supposed to show up instead, and then Easton, he might have not been told that, I don't know, he might have not been told that he was expected here, I don't know.
No, you reach out to us. You reach out to us.
I want my money because I'm done after this.
Because like normally he's only expected for him. Because like his role is more on the board side, like he's one of the directors. And it's just, but it doesn't all as the actual secretary. Fighting him.
Right. Our fridge doesn't look great. It's just like a hot.
He's one of the directors, and he was by directors elected as secretary of the corporation. As a volunteer position. He gets some sort of no, science. Actually, my colleague used to be in science. Now he's in economics. Officers of the corporation, officers of the corporation are the execs, Benjamin and Thomas. So, council. Yeah, I guess it is. We engineering students.
Let's go for that.
Okay, what?
Okay, that's great.
Yeah, it's not usually.
I think you looked at us like, hey, this is the yeah, I was like, okay. So you don't have us to by school.
Doesn't matter. Next meeting, there should be 5 grades.
That's a Michael question. I'm sorry. I mean, that's not really an operations matter or a finance matter. I gave him the budget. I technically spent his money on this. His budget. I went and was like, I authorized the Iace clerk to spend against the president's budget line.
Financially, they are doing, you want to deal with the scandal.
Did you know I can unilaterally revoke all of the corporate cards? And some funds and everything else? I'm already like restricting the.
So no one has one now?
No, they have one, but there's fewer. I noticed that I noted that I would be reviewing transactions.
But what about your transaction then?
My transactions get reviewed by the accounting manager.
Okay.
Who doesn't direct report to me, so.
Like, it's not me, I usually like, I did because realistic, I guess. How's this look?
And I was like, there it is. Just something. Nice to meet you. You're welcome. Yes, I was about to say, I'm pretty sure I saw you. I don't know Facebook right now. And I was like, very small portfolio. I don't know what you call it.
Yeah, I wasn't really, like, I don't just want to like, I'm not listing my thoughts. Because it's not like we could come out and work on doing for engineering firms, unlike the we're just discussing kind of maps and things
Their name is attached to the.
I'm going to ask councilors to please reconvene in their seats.
Anyone on the call still hear or still see my screen?
Yeah, it's working.
Perfect, thank you.
So yeah, it is now 2:35, and we are putting the meeting back to order. So next item on the agenda is ratification of the raise procedure. So this is an item that council delegated to Platt to create these procedures, and we are now ratifying them. So be it resolved that council ratifies Platt approved procedural amendments to procedure 25 Federation of Student Services, section C, subsection XI, regarding the definition and scope of the raised service. So Amanda moved it. Is there a seconder? Seneca. So Amanda can start speaking to it, and I will pull up those amendments. Go ahead.
Yeah, there isn't really too much to say other than this procedure rule amendment has already been passed class. They've already approved it, so this will help raise the fully included in our procedures.
Almost there.
So,
Here we go. Okay, so here, I'm assuming you've seen it, but just in case you haven't, these are the procedural amendments that are on the floor. Is there any discussion about these amendments? Seeing none, I will bring them to a vote. Any opposed to the ratification? Any abstaining? Okay, the item passes unanimously. We are now going to move into general orders. So first item in general orders, procedure 10, mutual exclusivity amendment. Be it resolved that council adopt the following amendment to procedure 10 for use of students. Council, section C, subsection 4 with immediate effect. You can read it on the screen. Seneca is moving it. Is there a seconder? Michael Boschme. Seneca, you can begin talking to it.
Sure. So this one I copied out of the University Senate bylaws. The purpose of this is that generally I think it's a bad practice, and I think most institutions do regulate the separation between the people who budget for the organization from the people who spend the budget for the organization from the people who are the executive of the organization. So the Committee of Presidents is the executive committee of council. They can make decisions on behalf of council between regular council meetings. budget appropriations, examines fee increases and changes, and budgets for the Federation of Students. And the Internal Funding Committee is the committee that approves funds within feds, with the exception of endowment funds like SLF. So I would generally say that this would just keep separate the people who budget for money from the people who spend the money, and have authorization to make special exceptions to the expense of money. So like if cops could make an exception to the expenditure of money that IFC didn't approve, that would be a little bit weird, stuff like that. I generally think this just cleans up the accountability of the committees a little bit.
Okay, is there any discussion on this amendment? Okay, seeing none, I will bring this item to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Seeing none, motion passes unanimously. So the next item is a different set of procedure 10 amendments. Be it resolved, okay, basically it's amendments that are for code. I'm moving this motion as a counselor. Is there a seconder? Seneca. So I will go through and try to quickly summarize the nature of these changes. So the first set here, this is related to all these. Procedure 10 is a procedure of committee, so all these are committee-related matters. So the first one is just the idea that someone who's in council because they're a society president, if they stop being a society president, they should be occupying a counselor's seat afterwards. So that seat can then be vacated and taken on by the counselor. So then section E, this is mostly just aligning the requirements of attendance to be the same as that for council meetings themselves. And also just saying, yeah, it's the speaker who directly calls special meetings, so just saying speaker instead of president. And then the point on 6, this is just in case there's an issue with the unresponsive chairperson and vice chairperson. 2/3, without having a meeting, 2/3 of the members can put a new chairperson in just to ensure that meetings happen. And this section 8 is really just alignment with restating what's in another procedure. And then, so for specific committees, this item for PPC makes a shift because the Speaker of Students' Council is generally, often deals with procedures and often has a bit more of a background with policy and procedures than the President, has them chair the committee, but still has the President there as Vice Chair. It also adds chair of the board of directors as a non-voting seat just because of their role in the policy process. And then that last, and then the striking section 3 just has now we specify the vice chair automatically. And then that last bit is literally just, I can give you the last section there is when we a few years ago the title changed from vice president internal to vice president student life, and this was one place where that had been updated accordingly. Yes, Seneca.
I'd like to move an amendment to the section of Policies and Procedures Committee that would note 3. So it would be item 3 that the Deputy Speaker of Council, as a non-voting resource member of the committee.
You want to add an additional item to this list?
Yeah, so or 7, and the Deputy Speaker of Council is a non-voting resource member if they are not
otherwise on the committee.
Sorry, if they're not otherwise on the committee. Yeah.
Okay, you have that wording taken down, Edward. Can you say one more time?
Sure. The Deputy Speaker of Students' Council, if they, as a non-voting resource member, if they are not already serving on the committee.
Okay, okay, is there, actually I can still second that, right? Yeah, so I will second that. I'm actually just going to ask if there is any opposition against this amendment being made. Okay, seeing none, it's been adopted as a friendly amendment. So there will now be an item 7 that says, what is it? Okay, so, yeah, so any discussion on these procedure changes as amended? Yes, Michael?
If the, in section J4B, Internal Administration Committee membership, changing Vice President Internal to Vice President Student Life, do you believe it's also prudent to change the name of the committee to be Student Life Administration Committee?
that's as, yes.
The choice of internal was to reflect that it's internal services and clubs versus external to the federation. The vice president internal name was coincidentally the same, they weren't necessarily parallel. Notably, the internal funding committee is under the vice president operations and finance.
Okay, is there any further points? Seeing none, I will bring this motion to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? I would like to note abstain as well, so myself, yours is noted. Like motion, right? Was there someone on this end? Okay, so then the motion passes unanimously. So we will now move on to election of committees. So I will move this item. Is there a seconder? Matt Garrett. Okay, so just to be clear, all these committees is encompassed in a single motion, because so we can move back and forth, things moving. The way we will do this, like with officers, we'll have nominations, we'll have speeches, and we'll have voting on paper ballots. I will say with respect to nominations, normally people nominate themselves, but you can nominate other people in this room if you want kind of pressure them into being in the committee. We will check if they actually accept. So you can just try nominating people like I did for assistant secretary. But don't nominate someone who isn't here unless they told you they want to be on this committee. So you don't want to force people on committees. Yes, Senator?
So I had candidates from my committees submit resumes to me so that I could vet the resumes and propose to council candidates based on that. Some did not submit resumes, did not submit statements of intent or reasoning for why they're interested in the committee, or didn't respond to any emails whatsoever. So I'd just like to provide council that information before I move all the people that submitted applications for my committees.
Okay,
If
we
that's
will go to that when we get to the respective committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, to be known, I should actually have said that also. Generally, we've solicited for at-large members that want to run to send applications to the appropriate execs. Some of the documentation sent to send applications to the speaker. If they sent it to the speaker, their application was forwarded to the appropriate exec. So when we get to meet the at-large membership of each committee, those execs can speak to the applications they received. Yeah, so you're being handed a whole bunch of ballots. Don't fill them out until we actually, because not all races may not be opposed, so until you know that a given race is actually opposed, please don't start writing in it on a ballot, because we want to try to use as little paper as we can. So we will start with the first committee, the Policies and Procedures Committee. So I'm actually going to pull up because the list of, I have my own system of councilors that have told me their interests. So, okay, ready, instead of taking notes and nominations? All right, okay, so Edward Yang, are you still interested in this committee?
Yes, I accept the nomination.
Okay, well, it's your own nomination. Angela, is Angela present? Yeah.
Angela's last name is...
Oh, sorry, Caitlin. Yeah. Caitlin, do you still wish to be on the Policies and Procedures Committee?
I presume yes if they submit.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so are there any other, for the council seats on this committee, are there any other nominations?
I'd like to nominate myself, Tasia O'Mealy.
Say that again.
Tasia O'Mealy.
Okay, and anyone else? Okay, so that is 3 candidates for 2 seats. So we will proceed with statements. I think we will stick to the, I'll stick to 30 seconds as a limit, although if you can do less, please do it. So we'll do it in order nominated. So Edward, you can go first when you're ready.
All right. current role is as Assistant Secretary for the Council, and I think I want to go to PC to help make better changes to the policy. I'm interested in the technical details and making sure the wording is as it should be to ensure long-term sustainability of bylaws and procedures. So yeah, that's all.
I'm sorry, you were
I can do that. Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, I'm going to give Edward a moment to write down his own statement.
I was like, every time I typed, I was like, getting the wrong letter.
Senator, when you have a chance, can you share those names with the online?
Sure, so for PBC, we have,
Actually, people are willing to put it on this screen or the current thing. Okay, let's get that going.
so for PBC, we have Edward Yang. Who else nominated, sorry?
That's Caitlin and then myself. I don't know if Caitlin's still on the line.
What's Caitlin's last name?
Mick
McCormick.
Kaminsky.
I think that's correct, that's close enough. I'm sorry, Caitlin, if I butchered the spelling of your name.
Okay, and what was the third person? No, Angela is Kate.
Yeah.
Okay, Caitlin, if you are on the line, can you please make a statement at this time?
Caitlin, if your mic is muted, you can click *6 to unmute it.
Caitlin, if you do not, since you actually didn't even accept it, if you don't make a statement, we're going to remove your nomination.
No, we should,
Okay,
for nobody.
fine, but still. Okay, so last call for Caitlin to make a statement. Okay, hearing none, we will presume that Caitlin is opted not to make a statement. If you are having technical issues, please indicate in the chat or send an email to the speaker address so we can ensure that you have the chance. So then, Taisha, you can make your 30-second statement.
Hi everyone, my name is Keisha. I'm one of the arts counselors for this upcoming year. So I'm really interested in how we can make the policy making process more transparent at feds, also ensuring that the bylaws are also respected as well in that process. Quite familiar with kind of the policy jargon and technical writing policy. I've done some co-op terms for the government, so it's kind of like where my interest lies as well. So hopefully moves me as a good candidate in this position.
Okay, so with that, with the closure of these statements, you can now cast your ballots. All these ballots will be, yeah.
Can you also do the at-large, so we can do one ballot per?
Oh, you want the stuff on a single ballot paper?
Just divide the paper.
Okay, please strike a line through your ballot paper to make it into two parts. One part for council, one part at large. And we will now, you can start writing in your council one as a ranked choice on one side, and we will proceed to the at-large nominations. So PBC, at-large, just open up my list. Okay, I have Katie Arnold, but that is no longer applicable since as speaker she has an ex officio seat.
Katie's also withdrawing all duties except for USRC.
Okay, so it's not, that nomination is not applicable. Yes, Helen?
Can you make the screen so the text bigger?
I will try. So while I figure this out,
Just highlight the text. Oh, that's amazing.
actually, okay, I think, yeah, hopefully more where else sticks. Okay, so at that point, I actually at this point have no at-large nominations. Michael, do you have any?
None that are not listed.
Well, the only thing I've listed is Katie for at-large.
That makes sense.
Okay, so we currently have 0 nominations.
I'll nominate Jason Small to one of the at-large seats, seeing no student.
I object as I already have one voting seat on this committee. Okay, you know what? Given that there is 2 seats and 0 nominations, I can accept.
We can, if the council's comfortable, there's a standing order from the last council that committees can fill their own vacancies subject to ratification at the next council meeting. So if the chair of the committee finds interested candidates, the committee can be filled, and then we can bring it back to ratification at the next meeting. If council's still comfortable with that process occurring.
So I think I would just want to define what should be those seats up here. Yeah, so actually, wait, we might have a quorum issue then.
No, then you'll have one.
Okay. Oh yeah, so in that case, we will leave those seats vacant. So you can proceed with finishing that ballot with just the council of candidates. And when it's done, and people online, please send your votes to Matt, similar to how you've done for officer. Please clearly note what your ballot is for, because there will be many of these coming up. But, you just say that there are nominations for at-large seats. Then the conversation about minutes. What? Filling in, see, yeah, that should go there, but yeah, I just about me. You know nothing about Katie yet. That Katie didn't express interest in how she has to see.
Yes, exactly. Like that was me last time, right? Exactly. I'm just glad that I chose specifically no more government stuff.
Okay, so while that's being processed, we will move on to our next committee, which is the Campus Life Advisory Committee. So I will go through, since we have received many councilor nominations up to date, I will go through those. Abigail, is Abigail even present?
She's on the
Yes, sorry. Abigail, do you still wish to sit on this committee?
No, not this one.
Okay, June, do you still wish to sit on this committee?
Yes, I do.
Okay, June nominates herself. Shazad, sorry for mispronunciation, do you still want to sit on this committee? Okay. Shanur, do you still want to sit? Okay. Caitlin, do you still want to sit on this committee? We presume yes. Okay. Caroline, do you still want to sit in this committee?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any other councilor nominations? The Campus Life Advisory Committee, and I have to write these down real bad. Abigail was in this.
So I have June, Shanur, Caitlin, Caroline. Am I missing anyone?
I think Shasta.
Hi, hello. Hello, my name is Victoria speaking. I'd like to be on this committee as well.
Victoria Roger.
Gotcha, Victoria.
Hello.
I think I have all the names on the screen.
Can I take a minute just to explain the difference between Iace and CLAC, because they do slightly
Yeah,
different
please do.
things. So Iace is responsible for administration of services and clubs, so that includes like what they're allowed to do, making sure they're following the rules, discipline when they're not, handling inter-service issues and service collaboration stuff, handling club disciplinary matters, that sort of thing. CLAC is responsible for a higher level. It's a higher level review. Its responsibilities are twofold: to advise the vice president student life on everything in the campus life and student experience kind of portfolio, and then the second half of the committee's job is to review the service reports that come from the services or from Iace and issue recommendations to council on termination, creation of new services, termination of existing services, or transfer of services to the university. So its role is just to kind of review at a very high level how services have met mandates and targets, whereas Iace is responsible for actually administering the services.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. With that said, are there any further councillor nominations for Black? Okay, seeing none, so we have the 6 nominees here for 2 seats. So we will proceed to statements. So we will start we'll start with Jude. Please go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is June, incoming math counselor. I would like to be on this committee partially because as a math student, I've definitely seen deterioration of student life in math faculty itself. So like from the hyper competitive job application cycles and also the lack of support for mental health. So I definitely have a lot of ideas on how to improve existing and maybe implement new services that will help to improve this. And it's something that is an issue that's close to my heart because I feel like I've been constantly around people who have experienced who need support for mental health and who need support for counseling, which
Thank you.
Thank you. And sorry, I feel like, let me know if anyone has trouble hearing me. But I've also had a little bit of, I was able to help and be a small part of the Yes Committee. So from listening to the including on it.
June!
Sorry, you were out of time.
Okay, no worries.
Okay, I guess we're not supposed to stick to 30 seconds just because we'll have a lot to go through. Then Julie, please mute your mic.
Sorry, can you repeat that? It's kind of hard to hear.
Please mute your mic.
Oh, okay.
Shaza, you can go ahead.
Hi guys, I'm the Arts Council. I want to participate because I want to ensure recognition of diversity and mental health problems within the student life and in campus.
Okay, next we have Shanur.
Hello everybody, my name is Shanur. I'm just saying the committee's mandate aligns really well with my own experiences on campus, which is why I chose it. I've been working as an ambassador for my career. I've worked with the Women's Center, and I've been training in dealing with sexual abuse survivors and mental health issues that people are suffering with. I've worked with vets, and I've been every year representing with little size living associations. I have a lot of faith on students. That's why I chose the committee.
Thank you.
I have the winners in the meantime for the PBC Council.
Yeah, sure.
Edward Asia.
Okay, sorry, it was Edward and, okay.
And I'll get it over counts to Assistant Secretary.
Yeah, you can send them later. Caitlin, please make your statement. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline. I'm the art student union president for the upcoming school year, and I would like to be involved on this committee just to ensure that services and clubs on campus remain accessible to students. I've been involved in providing clubs and services over my school term, and I want to make sure that everyone else can have the same kind of experience and opportunity to do so.
Thank you. And finally, Victoria.
Just 2 seconds.
Yeah, sure.
So hello everyone, I would like to be on this committee as I feel that I have a lot to offer, bringing the lens of intersectionality, as well as having been a founder of RAISE, one of the newest services. It would be, I feel like I would serve utility students as well as I can bring my experience as being a founder of a service, as well as just like recreating that model and making sure that all services are serving students in the way that they should be. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. So you can, like, once again, please like have two parts to your ballot, and you can start filling in the counselor section, and to allow go out to at-large nominations for this committee. So I received notice of Kana Sharma wishing to run for this committee. Amanda, what do you have nominations for at-large positions to report on?
Yes, I have one, and their name is, I think you just said the same name, so yeah, Kanan Sharma, that's the only one I have here.
Okay, did Kana, actually, I guess it doesn't really matter what statement it had. Okay, does anyone else wish to make a nomination for an at-large position? Okay, seeing none, I'm going to suggest we just fill in that one seat and allow the other one to remain vacant. Okay, so you can now, when you're done with your ballot for the councilor's position, you can, like, for people online, we send it in, and for people here, it will be collected shortly.
People online that I'm sharing my screen with you, in the URL tab, I've written down who all the candidates are.
Hi, point of information.
Yes?
Sorry, so when we're voting this electronically, are we just ranking them all in a row, or like top 3, or how is it working?
You can rank however many you want.
Okay.
Just hanging back. They don't see the
Question for Matt. Did you receive my vote over Teams, or would you prefer I vote over email?
Is that Megan? Yes, your vote has been received.
Okay. So I think all the votes have been turned in, so we will proceed to our next committee, which is the Internal Administration Committee. So I will go over the, so let's see. Okay, Shnur, do you still want to sit on IAC? Okay.
Can I suggest that we do IAC after the results for Clacker announced, because the committees have
That is a fair statement. Okay, we will skip over to EAC now, the Education Advisory Committee.
Can I suggest that we do the finance committees first, since Matt is tabulating stuff and might have recommendations?
Okay, fine.
These committees.
Okay, fine. We'll get EAC.
Thank you.
Okay, so we are skipping ahead to the Budget and Appropriations Committee. Okay. Okay. So, June, do you still wish to run for this committee? June?
No.
Okay. Stacey, no, you won't. Okay. Caitlin, do you wish to run for the Budget and Appropriations Committee? I will presume yes, so Caitlin self-nominates. Are there any other councilor nominations for the Budget and Appropriations Committee?
This is Diana to nominate myself.
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay. Were there any other nominations?
I was going to propose that there weren't nominations for it, that we open council seat to at-large.
Because there have been.
Point of order, I need to know how many councilors are present.
When I reported attendance, it was 28.
Could I ask for a quorum check by name?
Wait, you actually need names, or?
I don't need by name, I just need to know how many people are here, otherwise this is going to go very poorly.
Okay. Yeah, we can do a count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 18 people are in this room.
15 people online.
Okay, so that is 33.
They're all still present?
Wait,
I'm sorry.
did you double count anyone?
I double counted myself.
And you might double count
You might have
anyone.
double counted other people. So So,
All right, one,
I'm just going to disconnect from online since that's doing accomplishing nothing.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 13 people are online.
I'm in the call twice, just so you know.
Yeah, no, I got that.
And then there's 18. Okay, so, sorry, for Budget and Appropriation Committee, is there any further council nominations? Okay, so we.
I would like to nominate Navia Mehta.
Okay, Navia, do you accept this nomination?
Yes.
Okay, Navia nominated by Michael. Okay, so any further nominations? Okay, so I see 3 nominations for 1 seat. So we will proceed to hear statements. Caitlin, would you please state your statement? Okay, Diana, can you please make your statement?
Yeah, so I'm Diana. I'm a math counselor, and my background with budgets is mostly from my work with Hackett Lawrence, where I've worked with a budget I would say is larger than most traditional clubs, and well, not to the scale of like that, but I have experience working with budgets and care a lot about where like the money of our students are going and how it's spent. So that's why I like to be on the budget appropriation committee.
Thank you, and now Nadia?
Give me 2 seconds, sorry, 2 seconds.
Yeah.
Okay, continue, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So, hey guys, I'm Navya Mehta and I'm a math counselor. The reason that I believe I should be on the committee is 2 things. Number 1, it's prior experience working with budget and appropriations, specifically serving as a project manager with Autonomous, as well as with several clubs within the Mathematics Society. And second being the idea that I believe can help shape the way that the budget for the Fed is structured and executed, and that is why I believe I am a good
Okay, thank you for those statements. This time definitely leave room in your ballot for at-large nominations. We have a lot of them. So you can start on the ballot. We'll go through the at-large ones. So, Senator, how about you start by listing your names?
Sure. I'm sorry, I accidentally minimized my screen.
So if you want, you can start with the ones that sent you materials.
Sure. So I have materials from David Gittins, Candace Lee, Gloria Lee, Dua Saeed, Rafiq Habib.
Okay, and now ones without.
So without, so those are the people that I gave you, were the people who submitted resumes and submitted statements of interest and reasoning for why they want to be on the committee. The students who did not were Matthew Schwarzer, or Schwartzy, English, I guess. There's a W after the H. Kirpa Patel.
Okay. I think there are more names than I have. Let me just check if those match my list.
That's the list you sent me.
Yeah, okay, yeah, good. Okay. First of all, I asked if there's any further nominations in this.
I have a motion.
Okay, yes.
Given the workload of the committee this year with Student Choice Initiative, I'd like to open to 2 at-large members instead of 1. I thought about this for a while, and I think it would be better to have 2 at-large members than 1.
Okay, Senate has made a motion to override the rules. Is there a seconder to this motion? Matthew Garrett. So just to be clear, what Seneca is moving for here is to temporarily expand the at-large, effectively for this year, expand the at-large membership from 1 at-large to 2 at-large. Is there any discussion on this? Yeah.
Maybe if you could just provide like maybe a little bit of context for why you think that's a good decision.
So the committee is going to be reviewing fee changes, it's going to be reviewing financial health, it's going to be reviewing budgets and building budgets, and recommending budgets for adoption to council and board respectively, depending on the type of budget. It's going to be reviewing a proposal for a capital improvement fund. It's responsible for the fee distribution breakdown into compulsory and optional fees. That's negotiated between myself and the university. So it's got a full plate, I think, and I think an additional hand would be useful, particularly in terms of reviewing financial health, looking at audits of other student unions to see where we land on that list is useful. And having an extra hand with the numbers is very, I just think, a useful exercise. I have recommendations that I'd like to make to the council on Budget and Appropriations Committee based on the candidates who did submit resumes. If you permit me to do that after this motion.
Yeah. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, note that as this is overriding the rules, this motion requires a 2/3 majority vote to pass. Any opposed? Seeing none?
Just a quick point of order for clarification. For the resumes that you've received, Seneca, is there any way we can get access to them for voting purposes, or how would these be work?
I could send them. Typically, the chair of the committee, so in this case me, reviews them and makes a recommendation to council on them. Since the students submitted them to me for review, I don't know that I'd be comfortable sending them out to council until I got confirmation of the students, and I don't know that I could do that in.
I would advise that we stick to specific questions rather than, also for the sake, or maybe set up making oral summaries up rather than sending full documents. So I will now go back to the vote. Was there any in opposition? Any abstentions? Seeing none, the motion passed unanimously. We are now going to be electing 2 at-large seats to this committee. Seneca, you can proceed with your recommendations.
My first recommendation, and these are in order of preference, would be David Matthew Gittins. David is let me just pull up his resume right now so that I can speak directly from it. David is a student in actuarial science. He's got excellent proficiency in Excel and other numerical database systems. He's familiar with Python, which is going to be very useful. Has an excellent background in statistics, computer science, economics, and mathematics, financial mathematics, which I would find very valuable on this committee, particularly with the amount of data we have to crunch and put together budgets. I also know that David has taken time to help the previous year's committee do number crunching, so I can speak to the quality of his work. Candace Lee has a background in chartered professional accountancy and mathematics. They have former experience in the Math Endowment Fund and with auditors and then PLLP. They served as a director on the Math Endowment Fund board and have served in capacity in terms of vice president of finance or equivalent for a number of groups, and have received scholarships for accounting specifically. So that's my second choice recommendation. My third choice recommendation is Rafiq Habib. Rafiq has worked as a capital expenditure management analyst, research analyst for the Treasury Board Secretariat for the federal government, or for the provincial government, excuse me, and oversaw the creation of the transit section of the 2019 provincial budget. They have experience in considerable amounts of policy that go into the back end of budgets, which I think is a valuable thing on the committee. They have experience in the public-private partnership, P3 projects, and in capital expenditures, which I think will be valuable this year as one of my predominant goals is to separate our capital and operating budgets. And they have process engineering experience. I would also recommend Rafiq Habib. The third candidate, the last 2 candidates, Gloria and Joa, both submitted resumes. Both their resumes were very good as well. I would encourage council to consider their applications highly. I would discourage council from considering Matthew Schwarza and Krupa Patel, as they did not submit any information, nor did they respond to email communication, multiple email communication attempts to gain that information. So that was a statement of intent and interest in the committee and the resume.
Okay. there anything of what Seneca said that was unclear? Okay, so with that said, if you could please complete your ballots for the Budget and Appropriations Committee, and they will be collected, and of course, people online can submit them to me.
I have the results for FLAC.
Okay, one moment. Okay, yeah, please go ahead.
It's Shanur and June.
Okay, thank you. While those votes are being collected, I will proceed. I'm now going to return to the Internal Administration Committee, Iace. So I will now head towards nominations for so I will go through the pre-submitted ones for Iace. Shanur, you said no. Okay. Are there any other councilor nominations for Iace? Caroline? Okay. Okay.
Could you scroll up briefly so that I can see the nominees?
One clock.
It was Shanur and Jude.
I'd like to nominate myself as well, Victoria Romney.
Okay. Are there any additional nominations for Iace? Okay, so that is 2 nominations for 2 seats, so those 2 people will be elected to those committees. We will now go to the at-large seats in that committee. I have Katie Arnold, so Michael, you said that Katie Arnold is no longer interested?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, you are in. Okay, so then there's no, okay, so, and there, Amanda, have you received any at-large nominations for Iace?
Yes, let me just look for the name. Karen Sharma.
Yeah.
That's the only one I have.
Lovely, okay. From the room, or I guess there's no more gallery, is there any other at-large nominations for Iace? Okay, seeing none, that one of the seats will be filled by Karen Sharma, and the other seat will remain vacant. No, because there's no opposed anything. Okay, so the next item, yeah, we're going to go to Education Advisory Committee now. So we're going to start with councilor nominations. So let's pull those up. Okay, Abigail, do you still want to run on the 2 for this committee?
Sorry, for what?
This is
audio,
education.
no.
This is Education Advisory Council.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, Jude, do you still want to run on this committee?
Is now exiting.
June, do you still want to run for Education Advisory Council?
Yes.
Yeah?
I think June is a senator, so she automatically has a seat on this committee.
Well, yes, although it is a non-voting seat, so it is her choice, although I would advise against it for that reason.
Okay.
So June, with that in mind, do you wish to run for this committee?
No.
Okay.
Thanks, Chair, for pointing that out.
Okay, Megan, do you still want to run for this committee?
No, thank you.
Okay, and Shazad, do you still want to? Okay. Are there any further council nominations?
I'd like to nominate myself.
Sorry.
Brendan.
Yeah. Okay.
I have the council seats for budget.
Okay, yeah, sure. What?
Diana and Nadia?
There's only one seat.
Oh, there's only one seat?
Yeah.
In which case it's Diana.
Okay. Okay. So sorry, are there any further council nominations for EAC? Okay, so there are 3 nominations and there are 3 seats, therefore there will be no election for those seats. So now we're going to go to the at-large nominations. So actually, yeah, Matthew, do you want to go through what you received?
I think you should have them all.
Okay, yeah, fine. So what I have is there's one Stephanie Mao, and then Sharma, and I have Matthew. Okay.
Did I send you one other name? I contacted you.
Yeah. No, I think the 4th name was for CSC. Not
Oh,
EAC.
okay, that would make sense. Thank you.
Okay, so we're back to, yeah, so I think, does anyone new have any further at-large nominations?
Scroll up to the budget council, or the budget at large seats.
Yes. Okay, so if there are no further, it's been 3 nominations and there are 3 at-large seats, so there will be no election. So there are no elections needed to be conducted for EAC. So we will now proceed to the next committee.
Oh, sorry, for budget.
Now it's 2.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so we will now proceed to Co-op Students Council. And hold up.
People need more ballots, by the way, or no?
Okay, so Co-op Students Council. Abigail, do you still wish to run for this committee?
Yes.
Okay. And just a reminder that anyone who wants to be on this committee has to be a co-op student. I'm assuming anyone who's expressed interest is. June, do you still wish to run on this committee?
Yes.
Okay. Edward, do you want to be on this committee? Okay. And Caroline, do you still want to be on this committee?
No.
Okay. Are there any further nominations for the Co-op Students Council? Okay, so there are 3 nominations for 3 seats. There won't be any election to the councillor side. We're now going to go to the at-large. Okay, so the one name that I am aware of is Ryan Roy. Matthew, do you have any other names for the Co-op Student Council at large?
I don't recall receiving any, no. I directed, and yeah, I think that was it.
Okay, I actually wasn't sure if that one was a definitive or just asking questions, so I should actually probably check.
Well, we can appoint them, and if they don't want to do it, then.
Oh, no, that has been a definitive statement of interest. Okay. So, is there any further at-large nominations? Okay, so that's one nomination for one seat, so that seat will be filled. Okay, so we are now going to move on to the internal funding committee. Yeah?
Before we do so, if council's amenable to it, I would like to reserve one of the council seats for an at-large member. I have 3 at-large applicants, all of whom I think would be very good, unless councilors do wish to hold all 3 seats.
Can we see what nominations come in first?
Sure, I just think if students want to participate in committee.
Okay,
we should
if you want to make
prioritize
that motion, you have the right to.
Yeah, so I'm making a motion that we reserve one of the 3 council seats on the committee to be a 3rd at-large seat on the committee.
Is there a seconder for this motion? Michael Boschman, do you have that down, Michael?
So your motion is to reserve one of the council seats for now.
Correct. There's 3 at-large applicants, they're all very qualified.
Okay, for clarification to people, internal funding committee normally has 3 councillor seats and 2 at-large seats, so this would be shifting it to 2 councillors and 3 at-large. Is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, so once again, this is a motion to override the rules, so it requires a 2/3 majority in favor. Any opposed? Does anyone not understand what's on the table?
I don't.
Okay, yeah, sorry. So what's happening is now is normally IFC would have 3 counselors and 2 at-large students. Seneca has made a motion to change that to 2 counselors and 3 at-large, as he believes that there are a high number of good at-large applicants. Do you understand?
Okay, thank you so much. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, is there any further comments about this motion? Okay, is there any opposed to this motion? Are there any abstaining? Okay, that motion passes unanimously. So now we will go to actually having nominations for this committee. And I will pull out those nominations. Okay. Edward, do you still want to sit on this committee? No. Okay. Caroline, do you still want to sit in this committee? Okay. Are there any councillor nominations for this committee? Okay.
Do people know what the committee does? Do they want me to give them a briefer?
Yeah, please do that.
So the committee is responsible for allocating, it's like an internal endowment fund. It allocates additional funding from 2 project lines. One is the special project fund that funds special projects, particularly those in the Vice President Student Life portfolio. But theoretically, for any special project that any student or counselor wishes to propose. The second is the Enterprise Opportunity Investment Fund, which is a fund held by the university and executed by the Federation of Students. We have a contract with them on what that fund is used for. It's to support startups for students. It's used to support new initiatives and fund conferences. So that's some of what the committee does. It's mostly vetting applications that get submitted, seeing if you want to fund the entire applicant's proposal or just parts of it and what conditions apply to it. But yeah, kind of like an endowment fund with less strict rules.
Okay, with that in mind, are there any councillor nominations for this committee? And so Brendan, do you wish to nominate yourself?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, whose hand was up?
I wish to nominate myself as well.
I'm sorry, I saw your name.
Tasia, T-A-I-J-A-H.
Okay.
The committee doesn't meet frequently too, if that's something that's rattling your minds. I'll nominate Nika if she's up for it.
Nika, do you accept?
Sure.
Okay. Is there any further nominations? Okay, so we have 3 nominations for 2 seats, so we will proceed to statements. As soon as I get a timer going, Brendan, you will go first.
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm the Environment Councillor. I think I'd be a good member in the Internal Fund.
Point of order, I can't hear him.
Yeah, maybe that microphone could be shifted and you could speak up. Okay, please restart your remarks.
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm the Environment Councillor, and I think I'd be a good member for the Internal Funding Committee. I've been involved a lot with Waterloo throughout different clubs and societies, and I hope you consider it.
Thank you. Taija, you will go next.
Sure. So as I said earlier, my name is Taija. I'm one of the County Arts Councillors. I think I'd be a good fit for this position, just as I've been involved in campus on different committees. So whether that be in my residence the first year at Renison, I was heavily involved in finance and operations there. Also, I have experience through my co-ops as well with vetting applications for funding for projects, mainly for environmental startups and things like that. But definitely something that I have relevant background to and interest in.
Thank you. And finally, then I will let Edward finish. Okay, Nika, go ahead.
So my name is Nika. I'm one of the science counselors this year, and I would prefer if you guys would call me Iace. But I don't have very much experience, but I can take this opportunity as a time to learn. And I'm really open to I get really involved in grants for being the first year, and I really, I don't know, I think I can do a lot more for learning this school.
Quick question for you. Is that Iace with an X or with the KS?
NIKS.
Thank you.
Would that note in the minutes, what the minutes as well?
Yeah, please, but yeah. Okay, so we can now start filling in that portion of your ballots.
Jason?
Yeah.
I'd like it noted in the minutes that Megan Town left at 3:35. Sorry guys, I told my mom I'd be done at 3:30.
Yes, okay, yeah, you know,
Hi, Megan.
Enjoy Mother's Day.
Thank you. Bye.
Everybody, hopefully you called your mom already. Because maybe you're talking
Megan Town is now exiting.
Yeah.
Can I leave my ballot here?
And is it filled?
It is as well.
Yeah, okay, yes. Okay. So we're now going to go on to the at-large nominations for this committee.
I've got some. So there's 3 at-large nominees. I'd say all of them are quite qualified. Kanan Sharma, Stephanie Emu, and Jennifer Gillen.
So they're claiming.
They're right, but it is, that's, I'm abstaining of the final ballot.
Okay, so yeah, those are the names that, those match names I've been aware of. Are there any from the floor? Is there any further at-large nominations for this committee?
Can I ask something about some background why you candidates?
Sure. So first, before I do so, I'd like it noted for the record that before I introduce the candidates, I note that Jennifer Gillen is my significant other. So take what I say with a grain of salt. I'll try to be as impartial as I can. In that regard, I'll start with Kanan. Kanan is an actuarial assistant for Empire Life and has previous experience in information systems management, financial approvals, and retail, as well as working as a vice president for the Mathematics Society, and is a director on the board of directors for the Math Endowment Fund. In addition, Kanan has worked for Federation of Students, a couple of the Federation of Students Commercial Services, and most recently as a part-time manager at Iace. He did a fairly good job there. I I note that for all the candidates, I think they're all fairly well qualified. Stephanie is an environment student who has significant background in endowment funds, particularly where she served as chair of WESF. She's a Bachelor for Knowledge Integration and has also been a committee member on the Student Life Endowment Fund for 2 years. And is part of the Social Innovators Program at the St. Paul's Greenhouse at Waterloo. The last candidate, Jennifer Gillen, is an incumbent on the committee. She has served for 2 years on the committee and has experience with the Ministry of, they renamed it, what is it now? Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility, I think, because I guess the only people with accessibility needs are seniors, but, sorry. Apparently, I don't know. She worked for the Ministry of Seniors and Accessibility and particularly the Directorate for Ontario Directorate for Accessibility, where she approved funding for projects for buildings to get up to code, enforced human rights code and building code requirements, and OADA compliance. She served on the committee in the past.
So no further nominations. That is 3 nominations for 3 at-large seats. So there will be no vote on that. So we're now going to collect the ballots for the council seats. Okay, just to be fair with people leaving, I highly like people staying till the end, but since the adjournment time on the agenda has been reached, if you do leave at this point, it will not count as an absence. However, we do ask you just indicate to us you're leaving so that we note it in the minutes when you left. So Navia is leaving at 3:40 p.m.
Just some.
Ballots have been handed in, we can move on to the next committee. So the next one that I'm going to call upon now is the ad hoc committee for general meeting engagement. So council nominations. Okay. June, do you still want to run on this committee?
Yes.
Okay. Shanura, do you still want to run on this committee? Okay. Edward, do you still want to run on this committee? What? Yes. Okay. And does anyone know if Katie still wants to?
This one question was interested in.
Michael, do you know if Katie wants to run on the general meeting engagement committee?
No, she said she would like to be withdrawn from all the committees.
Actually, she has a non-voting seat as speaker. So that's...
She has a voting seat as speaker.
Okay, yeah, she has actually, so that's actually not. So,
I'd like to nominate Jason Small. He served on the committee the last 2 years. I think he'd be a good addition.
okay, I will accept that nomination. Are there any further council nominations for this committee?
This is Diane. I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Okay. So since there are 2 seats and we have 4 nominations, we will proceed to statements. So June, are you catch that? Okay. June, you could go ahead with your statement.
Hi, this is June again. So I'd like to be on this committee just because I attended my first GM in the winter, and after that I really got a list of things that I felt like application approval, just because it really saddens me to see that a lot of the execution of the event is from planning perspective, and I feel like engagement and even just losing quorum at the event could have been improved and better if we had some things better planned, or also if we had some other things in place. And so I personally feel really strongly about being able to improve how we execute this event, just so that we can improve engagement and also so that...
Yeah, you are on time, thank you.
Thank you.
When you're ready, Edward, you can make your statement.
Alright. Hi, so I'm Edward. So I want to be on this committee because I have been to 2 previous GMs and I have seen how losing quorum significantly hurts the corporation's ability to carry out business and move things forward. The last time in the winter there was a lot of loss of quorum and many significant things came to pass, things that would even help meetings. So I would like to be on this committee to help improve that and improve awareness of general meetings overall.
Yeah, sure. So hello again, Jason. As Seneca mentioned, I've been on this committee for the past year, at which point it was working towards making a large series of bylaw amendments. So I would be interested in being this committee as it continues with further enhancements to GMs, including attempting to implement online voting. Thank you.
Should I go?
And 1 second.
Yes, you're good with that.
Oh, okay, cool. Hi, I'm Diana, the math counselor. So I've been off campus and will be off campus for a whole year until the end of August. So I feel very passionate about making meetings more engaging and inclusive for people who aren't able to make it in person. I've been a team lead on Hackpreneur for 2 years, and so I've also worked a lot on how to make meetings engaging for everyone who is attending it. So I like to think that I have a good amount of experience and thoughts on what to do to help make the general meetings and council meetings more engaging and effective for everyone who is there. That's it.
Thank you. So now start completing the roles for the council side, and we will move on to at-large nominations. Katie one is non-applicable. Michael, have you received any applications for at-large seats on this committee?
None have been forwarded.
Well, the only one I have listed is Katie. Okay.
I propose then that we open the at-large seats for the 2 remaining candidates and give all 4 members the capacity to participate.
It's only, oh yeah, it is 2 at-large seats. Okay, yeah, so we'll just actually, so you actually don't have to do the ballots anymore. We'll move that over. That doesn't actually, to explain to everyone, what Seneca is proposing doesn't require a motion, because the way procedures are structured is that councilors can run for at-large seats in the event that there are not people at-large interested. Actually, we still want to do the vote counts that we have people on each category of seats. Okay, yeah, so we'll just, you can actually toss those ballots, and we will, because all 4 names will end up put into that committee. Okay. No. Yeah, I'll go over you what our problem is. Okay, so the next committee I will go to is the SLC Management Advisory. I'm going to that last. So next is the SLC Management Advisory Committee. June, are you still interested in this committee?
Yes.
Okay, So are there any other councillor nominations to this committee?
This is Diana. I'd like to nominate myself.
Okay, thank you. Any other nominations?
Nominate Colin Parkin.
Okay, Colin, do you accept this nomination?
Colin online.
I believe so.
Sure.
Was that a yes, we accept?
Yes, I accept.
Okay. Any further nominations? Okay, so that is 2 nominations for 1 seat, so we will proceed to statements. Yes. Okay, Diana, you can make your statement.
Cool. Yeah, so Diana, Math Counselor, so referencing my experience with Hack North again, I've been working on logistics for Hack North for 3 years, and so I would like to think that I also have a lot of experience in working on operations and logistics of things. So I know it's not the same thing as working on FLC, but I think the experience definitely could transfer, or the knowledge could transfer. And I also think that FLC is the living spot on campus where students across all faculties get together, and I have seen how buildings like this across other campuses, for example, in UK at Leeds, UCL, and in Switzerland at UCFL, and how they work. So I also have thoughts on how FLC could be done in the best way, or at least hopefully operate as the best place for students at Waterloo.
Okay, and now, yeah, I'll wait for everyone to finish taking notes on that. Okay, Colin? Colin, if you could please make your statement.
Colin, science counselor. I want to get my students to over and get some experience, and I think this would be a good way. And I feel I really want to help make a difference, and I think this would be a good starting point for me. Even though I don't have like the most experience, I think I'd be able to put a lot of effort into it. And yeah.
Okay, thank you. So you can start filling out those ballots now. For at-large, are there any at-large nominees? Seneca, have you received any?
For a slip management?
Okay. Actually, so I have a note of Katie. Do you know if Katie's interested in sitting on this committee still?
Awesome.
Okay. So, does anyone, so do we want to move the seats over then?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so we'll proceed.
I was just moving.
Okay. No motion is necessary. So actually, you don't have to fill out ballots for this one since, like with our last committee, the twos. So both Diana and Colin will sit on this committee. Okay, so we will now go to the final committee, which, as Seneca pointed out, I purposely skipped over one in the list. The Waterfowl Mascot Ad Hoc Committee. Yeah?
Before we move on, I just have to leave the campus.
Okay, yeah, so, yeah. Yes, we are leaving at 3:51 p.m. Your name's good?
Shasta?
And Shador.
Okay, sorry for saying that.
Shador. Okay, so for the waterfowl committee, are there any councillor nominations? Yes, sure. Edward nominates himself.
I'd like to nominate myself.
And Nix, yeah. Okay. Are there any further council nominations? Okay, so that is 2 nominations for 1 seat. Actually, you know what? Let's just see. Actually, I want to see how many at-large nominations we end up getting. Yeah. So the one at-large nomination I am aware of is Jennifer. Michael, have you received any other nominations?
I have not.
Okay. Are there any, from the floor, is there any other at-large nominations to this committee?
Where's Lenny Chang for an alumni seat?
He is ineligible as he is not a member of the Federation of Students.
Waterfowl?
Like the goose mascot.
Does anyone want it stated what this committee is for?
It sounds ridiculous.
But thank you. I created the committee 2 years ago, so I think it is too. So the purpose of the committee is to conduct survey of students and to hold a referendum on what the style, name, and mascot choice for type of mascot, type of goose mascot we use to make it like the goose mascot for the student union, and to lobby the university to get rid of the stupid lion thing and King Warrior, whatever, and to make King Warrior into a goose with a centurion helm. I think was the direction.
Actually, yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that. I'm gonna take it.
Mariko, you're nominating yourself?
Like, do I have to? I have to do it, right?
What?
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not going to be on this though after this 4 months.
Yeah. America, would you like to nominate yourself for that?
I would like to. Is there only one at-large seat?
Yes.
I would love to fight Jennifer.
Actually, no, there's 2 at-large seats.
Oh,
on
okay.
this
I guess I
committee.
don't have to do that.
Yeah, this committee has, according to my records, is 1 counselor and 2 at-large.
Correct. Correct.
Okay, so in that case, with those nominations considered, we are going to have a vote for the counselor seat. Actually, Mariko, you have to run as a counselor.
I do.
Because you are currently a counselor.
But I can stay on it if I'm not.
Well, the thing is,
It's a year-long mandate. She could reasonably run this up.
actually, you don't find it. Okay, you want, yeah, you can run as at-large, and we'll just go through. Okay, so Edward, when you're ready, you can make your statement.
So hi, it's Edward again. I guess for too long we have not properly recognized the true leader of the school, Mr. Goose. And I feel this committee is invaluable in ensuring the prosperity and the longevity of the university, because if we don't pay home Mr. Goose, oh, who knows what they'll do to us eventually.
Hey, if you want to take notes of what you just said.
As verbatim as possible.
I will try my best.
Okay, Mix, you can make your statement.
Honestly, at the moment, I think, like, you're really disconnected from our Waterloo Warrior mascot, and we should show Mr. Goose the respect that we know he deserves. We should give him the recognition that he needs, like the true recognition.
I'm sorry, did you assume that Goose's gender?
I mean, it's Mr. Goose, right?
It was called Mr. Goose mascot motion.
Mr. Goose mascot.
The style was one of the things that was up in the air.
Okay, you know what? Okay, so whoever wants to can complete their ballot, but you need 2 people for this.
Any ballots of like this? Okay, I'll hold on to them, give them back to you on that.
So since this is the last of the committees, we will have to wait until the last of the ballots are counted. Did you have results from now?
Yeah. What was the last result again?
You're not supposed to look at the fucking ballots of it.
Yes, I knew it wasn't an actual vote.
Okay, wait, no, Iace was acclaimed. Was there a vote for Co-op Student Council?
No. No, we filled those, I've got those.
Okay, IFC?
We have IFC, I just need budget appropriations.
So budget, the council seat was Diana, the at-large seats were David and Candace, and for ISC, the council.
Wait, there's 2 at-large seats for you. But
Yeah, you can check.
I'm sorry, who was it?
David and Candace. Candace
Oh,
and
okay.
David.
Sorry, I thought that was the first and last name. My bad. Okay.
And IFC, Stasia and Nix.
Okay. ISD. So for counselor, right?
Yes.
And then after for claim, and then.
Honestly, of all the things to reduce opt-outs in 1 year, running a referendum on a goose mascot might actually decrease the amount of opt-outs we get.
But it might also increase the number of opt-outs.
Perhaps. It's a trade-off. Queen's Gambit. Yeah, honestly. Sure.
Yeah, but he's bad at that.
Hi, Jason.
Yeah.
This is June.
Yes.
Hi, I have to leave the meeting right now, especially late, but could you just note that in the minutes?
Yes, sure. Thank you. June leaves at 3:58 p.m.
Okay, thank you. Happy Father's Day, everyone.
And I also haven't noted that Mackenzie Lau is doing as well.
Mackenzie Lyle also left
Okay.
at 3:59.
Can you noted that Victoria Rodney will be leaving as well?
Noted.
And we still have one. Which is good because we've got a few more
We haven't actually passed this.
Can we?
Well, I need, it's a single motion with, so I. I just want to make a statement that I will be encouraging the applicable executives to hold their first committee meeting in a reasonably expedient manner. Just as I think it is good guideline that these committees convene. So you can expect to ultimately hear from your executive running a committee with details about scheduling. Normally they'll do a scheduling tool to try and find a suitable date. Notably for Co-op Students Council, they have a meeting scheduled for this coming Wednesday at 5 p.m. So yeah, but otherwise there will probably be scheduling polls coming up to schedule the committee meetings.
Budget appropriations is Thursday at 5. I will reschedule them then, but we had urgent business that required decisions to be made last week.
Okay.
The committee had more time.
We're running a waterfowl
Yeah.
council. So we have 2 votes for Edward, 8 votes for Nix, and then a variety of protest votes, many of which are clever.
I request that all the protest votes be included in the minutes.
I included them because
Like, I mean, you pass the actual text, like.
there are some that are expletive.
It's okay in the minutes, just
One
one.
that-
Yeah, well, Phil talked to exhibits in minutes, but I do want the text to be noted.
Right.
So it makes sense.
Yes. Spoiled ballots. Spoiled. You can't have a write-in anymore.
Hopefully they
If there was write-ins, then Mr. Goose would have had one.
Can we bring this to vote?
Um,
To the agenda, please.
Right, so yes, we have to include. So I will assume a motion to amend the motion to include all the names of all the people we have elected to committees. Is there a seconder to that motion? Mariko? Okay, is there any discussion of this motion?
I'd like a formal statement from council saying that it is still okay with committees filling their vacancies subject to ratification at the next meeting.
Can that be a separate amendment after this one
Sure.
passes? Okay, any further, yes?
Is this motion also including the names of secretaries and things that are elected earlier?
No, those were motions that happened at the beginning.
Okay, I thought we motion to do it with the committee.
No, that was just for destruction of ballots, which we'll get to later.
Okay, gotcha.
Any further discussion? Okay, bring it to a vote. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Motion passes unanimously.
Sorry, I abstained or like it.
Senate has a noted abstention, okay. And what, Matt, is that?
Someone,
Noted abstention from Matt, okay. So Seneca, you wish to move a motion to allow committees to fill their vacant at-large seats subject to ratification by council at a future meeting?
Correct.
Okay, I'll give you the text of that later. Okay, is there a seconder to that motion? Matt Garrett? Okay, just to be clear, what this is doing is for the remaining vacant at-large seats, it allows the committees and the committee chairs to find people and to put them in right away, and then we'll ratify, reaffirm the decision at future council meetings. So is there any discussion on this motion? Okay, I'll bring it to a vote. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Matthew, did you want to note it? Michael motion and noted abstention. Michael? Yeah. Okay, motion passes unanimously. We now have an amended motion to appoint people to committees. Is there any further discussion on the motion as amended? Seeing none, I will bring it to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Seneca and Michael and Matthew. Okay, the motion passes unanimously. We next had a motion to destroy all ballots. So Seneca and Matthew. Matthew, you want to speak to this?
Yeah, I'd like to move to amend this motion. Particularly, I just wanted to point out that the vote for Clack was close, and I just want to be able to hand the copies of ballots over to our research and policy officer to recount, just to make sure that I did my counting in a manner that was appropriate.
So how do you want to handle this?
So I want to amend that we destroy all ballots except those for the Campus Life Advisory.
Would you rather we just delay destroying them?
No.
Okay. Okay, fine. So is there a seconder to that amendment? Seneca. So the motion is, so this is just an amendment so that the ballots for Clack doesn't get destroyed. Any discussion about this? Okay, bring it to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. So the motion destroy has now been amended so that's destroying all ballots except those for Clack. Any further discussions on this motion? Seeing none, I bring it to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. All ballots except those for Clack will be destroyed. Okay, so we're now out of the committee land and we're going to close this. Okay, so the next motion is various amendments to Procedure 9, which I will open. I am the mover for that. Is there a seconder? Seneca? So I will once again, actually, do I need to go through it since I did write purposes in this, and it wasn't the agenda? Do people want me to go through these amendments one by one or not? Seneca?
I don't think you need to. There was some on the agenda, but I do have some minor amendments that I'd like to propose.
Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, 2A, I would like it to refer to instead of on the table, on the floor, so that we stick with the proper verbiage for under Robert's rules.
Okay.
Since English and American versions use different language.
Let me tell that right. So for section B2 and then number 2A, change on the table to on the floor. Is that what you said?
Yes, and similarly the footnote, the first footnote, footnote 1, same exact change. Matter on the floor should, matter on the table should read matter on the floor.
Okay, is there any objection to this amendment? Seeing none, that amendment has been made.
I'd like to propose a change to section D3, agenda, content of the agenda. Instead of the speaker shall allocate, the speaker may at their discretion allocate. The purpose of this is that sometimes if an agenda does not look, like if an agenda doesn't look controversial, I don't think the speaker should be going and putting time limits. Like people should have a right to speak to things. If there's a very long agenda, I think they should though be able to add those time limits.
Okay, so I'm going to be objecting to that. So is there a seconder to that amendment?
can you just repeat your minutes?
Sure.
Yeah, sure.
Just instead of the speaker shall allocate, the speaker may, at their discretion, allocate. And then in the same, it's the same content of the same amendment, at the beginning of the next sentence should say, in such instance, comma.
Where are you referring to?
The next sentence, in such instance, at least 10.
Yeah, okay, fine. Okay, so Senate has proposed that amendment. Is there a seconder to that amendment? Matt, okay. So yeah, so because I'm announcing opposition, it's not a friendly amendment. So I'm going to actually just state my own reasoning of why I'm opposing it, is because to me the purpose of this is like of that spirit of motions is to, because people want to have fixed ending times for meetings, I think it's important to ensure that things can get done within that ending time. And I think a way of doing that is to put times to each individual motion, so one motion taking too long doesn't stop other things from being heard. So I think Seneca's amendment completely defeats that purpose. Yes, Matt?
No, never mind, it's not on.
Yes, Seneca?
So my amendment here is that if an agenda doesn't have substantial content, the speaker should generally avoid putting time limits on things to give council the opportunity to discuss it as fully as it wants. If council decides they want to spend an hour debating an item, then the council should have the right to spend an hour debating an item. Not have to vote to continue debating every single time you hit whatever 15, 25 minutes, 30-minute intervals. I do know that it defeats the purpose of that, but I think a prudent speaker would exercise, if it's may at their discretion, would exercise their discretion, I think, fairly liberally to cap debate if they think an agenda is long. I don't think very many speakers would elect not to include time limits if there were a substantial number of agenda items.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak about this matter? Yes, Michael.
Please also note that Robert's rules allow speakers during the meeting to impose time limits for consideration of items if things are taking too long.
I'm curious actually about that. Where do you guys?
It has to be voted on by the assembly. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not locally.
Yeah, so it's just a matter, it's just a routine to set time which we can apply to expand this. Yes, Matt?
Point of information, is this procedure suspendable?
Yes, since it doesn't say that it isn't.
This is procedure 9. Procedure 9 is not suspended.
Is the entirety of procedure 9 isn't?
That would be considered,
I
yes.
believe so. Double check that.
I'm going to check that as well. See no explicit mention that it is not suspendable. So my ruling as chair would be that such a provision would be suspendable.
I guess generally we could always change time limits too during approval of the agenda.
Okay, any further discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, I will take it to vote. People in opposition? If you're in opposition, okay, so any abstaining? Okay, that amendment passes.
So just to repeat, that was the speaker may, comma, at their discretion, comma, and then the beginning of the next sentence was in such instance, comma, at least 10.
Okay. Seneca, did you have further stuff?
Yeah, section EI, the next section,
Yeah.
I believe. I'm not sure I agree with the last sentence you added. Any increase to the time limit of debate shall by default result in the adjournment time being shifted by the same amount of increase. I think if council chooses to debate one item longer, generally council has agreed by doing so that other items will have less time. And so if we constantly just extend the debate time when the meeting can run on, like I think council has to make a conscious choice that debating one item comes at a cost of debating other items, unless a vote is had to change the adjournment time. So I would disagree with the last sentence, and I'd like to strike the last sentence of that E3.
Okay, is there a seconder to that amendment? Michael? Okay, yeah, the one thing, do you have it down, Edward?
Just want to strike that last line, correct?
Yes. Okay, that last sentence.
Any increase to time limit?
Yeah. Okay, so the one thing I will say about that, I think it's important is that such an amendment would run against the right of a council to bring an item to business if this could result in them losing the chance to have their item heard or well, essentially having it put off to a future meeting. That's what I will say against it. Is there any further discussion?
Is this on the amendment?
Yeah. Okay, yes?
I also, sorry.
Before you go, can I just catch up with Jason's thing?
Yeah, for sure, just let me know.
So your position was they would push it back in?
Yeah, it's a red council, so they're right.
There's still snacks, they're warm.
So my name is Caroline, and I agree with what Jason's saying. I understand it might be difficult just to keep adding time on it and just continue the discussion, but I think allowing more time and not forcing institutions on time for discussions would be really helpful. And then it's just good because then people don't have to feel like, okay, I just need to get this point, this point, and this point in. They're able to have a bit of a your discussion.
Yes.
I'm not bringing the amendment up necessarily because I agree with the amendment. I just thought it should be a matter of discussion. Do councilors have an inherent right to bring something up in new business? Or should the times that we set when we vote on the agenda be the time that we end? So my belief is that councilors should raise their concerns. If they think the ending time isn't sufficient to get business done, they should bring up their concerns when they approve the agenda, which is why I'm opposed to the sentence. But if councilors would rather, just during the meeting, that if time gets shifted, everything shifts with it, either way is fine, it's just choose one direction or the other. So I'm kind of in the first camp, but I don't mind the other one, that's fine. That's where I'm coming from with this.
Okay, is there any further discussion on this? Do people understand what is up for discussion right now? Okay, I will presume the yes, unless someone says no. So in that case, I will bring that item up for a vote. People opposed to the change proposed by Seneca? And if you're on the call, please say your votes out loud if you are. Okay, so that's 3. People abstaining? Okay, Seneca has a note abstention. I think my opposition voted to vote this in the last one. Okay. In this case, then amendment passes. Okay. Seneca, did you still want to go on with that?
Yeah, so I would just like to note to council, I am fine with the next section, the last sentence of the next section of adjusting the agenda time, only because moving something from the consent agenda should give it time to debate it. So that's why I didn't raise that as an amendment. I have no further amendments on the second.
Okay, Matt, I'll let everyone. Yeah, Matt?
All right, ask the speaker's indulgence on having a straw poll and how comfortable people feel and how comfortable feel at this time, whether they want to pass this motion now or whether they'd like more time to think about it.
Okay, so what Matt has requested for is a straw poll of whether people feel comfortable passing these series of changes today. So we can make a straw poll with the online people.
Just have them say yes or no.
Okay, so, and people on here just use thumbs up, thumbs down. So if you could please respond to the straw poll on whether or not you are comfortable or you're not comfortable voting on these sets of changes today. Okay, and people on the call, please say out loud whether that's a yes or no.
Jen. Yep.
Noted.
Okay, in the room, I'm getting a whole lot of mixed thumbs. It's overall seems mixed to me. Please know in the minutes that there's also struggles, mixed opinions. Yes, Matt?
I'd like to postpone the amendments to next regular meeting.
Second.
I do wonder, okay, I'm just going to say in response to that, I personally wonder whether or not having to another meeting, whether people might actually find putting it to committee would be a more useful way of actually getting.
Can I offer midway, because there are a couple that are timely? Can I offer everything up to section D3 that we accept on the spot? So that's the change to the order of business. That's the change to meeting dates. That's the change to the role of the secretary. And that's the change to the speaker and the deputy speaker. I can second that motion.
Okay, so just to be clear, that's going to be a motion to divide the question.
So motion to divide the question into sections.
Excuse me, Jason?
Yeah?
Do you ever notice that I'm leaving for 19?
Yeah, John. Okay, I've duly noted.
I would
Thank you.
move that we divide the question to consider sections B2, B3, B4, C1, C2, and D2 together, and then all the rest afterwards.
Okay. So that was moved by Seneca, seconded by Matthew. Is there any debate about, just to be clear, dividing the question, what that does is it takes like a single motion and splits it into two. If this motion passes, we'll then vote on both parts separately. Yeah? So is there any discussion about dividing the question? Any opposition? Any abstentions? The question has been divided. So we are now considering the first part.
Can I get the exact way you divided it?
Sure. B2,
Yep.
B3,
Yes.
B4,
Okay.
C1,
Okay.
C2, D2. That's what we'll be voting on as one block.
And then everything else is another. Well, another. Okay.
Point of order.
Yeah.
I'd like to request, just because I know that things can get lost in communication, that you ask for those in favor of each of these motions and those against.
Sure. Okay, so we are now in consideration of the first block of items. Is there any further discussion on that first block? Seeing none, we will proceed to a vote. All in favor of passing that first block? And people on the phone, please state if you are in favor. Okay, all opposed to passing this block? And abstentions? Does anyone want to vote noted? Seneca, that's noted what?
In favor, excuse me.
Okay. Okay, so that carries. So that first set has now been approved. We are now in consideration of the second set.
I move that we postpone the consideration of the second set to the next meeting.
Okay, and is there a seconder? Matt? Okay, so motion has been made for the remaining set of amendments to postpone to the next meeting of council. Is there any discussion on this? Yes?
So are you suggesting we get more time to think about it, or do you change it?
But you can't change the item if it's been tabled. You have to lift it from the table the way it went down to the table.
Although you could prepare amendments to be made after that next meeting.
Their intention is to give more time to think about it and not make changes.
Okay, I'll let you get back to that. So is there any further, is there any discussion on the postponement of those items? Seeing none, I'll bring a vote on whether to postpone them. All in favor of postponement? Okay, any opposed? Matt, your hand is Okay, any abstentions? I'd like to note an abstention. Okay, so the remainder of those amendments have been postponed to the next meeting, to the June meeting of the council. Okay, so the next item is rules for conduct of on road. So this is a series of different changes, essentially adding a whole new section to procedure 9, but this motion is just to refer the item to policies and procedure committees for consideration. So I'm moving it. Is there a seconder? Seneca? So I think what I put as a rationale in the agenda item speaks to itself, and I think I do purposely chose for this one to go to PBC for consideration because it is complex. It is something that I wrote largely on my own in one night, and so it definitely needs proper consideration to make sure everything is worded, is handled correctly. Is there any discussion about this?
I do have some considerable reservations on a couple aspects of it. I'll provide that information to the chair of the Policy and Procedures Committee to consider. And I would like an amendment made to the language of that to say committed to the Policies and Procedures Committee as opposed to referred. Semantic, but nonetheless.
Refer and commit are both synonyms under Robert's rules.
Refer allows the committee to make a decision.
In which did I write? Okay, yeah, so then, yeah, okay. I'm going to suggest that as a friendly amendment. Is anyone opposed to that change in wording from refer to commit? It's just in the motion change refer to commit. Okay. So now the motion now says commit, since there's no opposition to that change. Is there any further discussion on this motion? Seeing none, we will bring this motion to a vote. Any opposed? Any abstaining? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, we are now at this next motion. Dates for the general election. Be it resolved that Council adopt the following timeline for the 2020 general election, a series of dates, and be it further resolved, the Council task the Office of the President to investigate and prepare procedural reforms that all general election dates at least 1 year in advance. Moved by Michael Beauchemin, seconded by Senator Bellin. Michael, do you wish to speak to this?
Yeah, so I'll speak mostly specifically to the timeline of events. That nominations open the day after the date that we have proposed for GMs, which is going to be the next motion. And that's to give ample time for people in both fall and winter to hear about and then submit their names for consideration for the general election. We decided to shorten the campaign period a little bit from what has happened this past year, simply because, as anyone who participated in the election can tell you, 2.5 to 3 weeks is a very long time, and it does take quite the focus away from your studies and from other things that concern people. So to that end, the campaign period we proposed January 28th to February 6th. It is a Tuesday to a Thursday. And then the voting period will occur on the last 3 days of the campaign period with the announcement of results on February